Good evening, and thank you for viewing the February 16th meeting of the Arcata City Council. The City Council meeting is being held as a teleconference in response to local efforts to reduce the COVID-19 virus. The city is hoping to return to public in-person meetings in March, so stay tuned for details as we get closer. If you would like to, please join me for the flag salute. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Atkins Salazar.
Here.
Vice Mayor Goldstein.
Here.
Councilmember Matthews.
Here.
Councilmember Schaefer.
Here.
Councilmember Watson.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. If you wish to make a comment during the meeting, either at the 2 open public comment periods or for an individual agenda item, there are 2 ways to do so. If you are logged on to the Zoom meeting webinar, click Raise Your Hand when it is time for public comment on the item on which you wish to speak. City staff will unmute you and you will have 2 minutes to comment. You can also access the meeting by phone. Call the number at the bottom of the screen. Enter the meeting ID also at the bottom of the screen. Press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. When it is time for public comment, city staff will request you to unmute and you will be prompted to dial *6 on your phone. You will hear a prompt that will indicate your phone is unmuted and you will have 2 minutes to comment. So next we have item 3, which is ceremonial matters. And so we have a proclamation that's recognizing February 22nd, 2022 as Spay Day USA. And this proclamation will be read by Councilmember Watson. Matthews, I'm sorry.
All right. Proclamation recognizing February 22nd, 2022 as Spay Day USA. Whereas an estimated 6.3 million homeless kittens, puppies, cats, and dogs entered animal shelters in the U.S. every year, a little over half of these animals are adopted. Due to lack of money and space, approximately 1.5 million are put down, even though many of these animals were healthy, adoptable, and often the offsprings of beloved family pets. And whereas animal control programs aimed at coping with the millions of homeless cats and dogs in the U.S. cost taxpayers billions of dollars annually, preventative spaying and neutering has been shown to drastically reduce pet population, and whereas ending cat and dog overpopulation is a major priority of the Companion Animal Foundation, Redwood Pals Rescue, the Sequoia Humane Society, the Humboldt County Animal Control, Friends for Life, Humboldt Spay and Neuter Network, and Miranda's Rescue. These local organizations work tirelessly to educate our community about the importance of spaying and neutering pets. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata hereby recognizes February 22nd, 2022 as Spay Day USA and encourages all community members to end pet overpopulation by having their own animals spayed and neutered, or by sponsoring another cat's or dog's spaying and neutering through one of our hard-working local animal organizations. Dated February 16th, 2022.
Thank you, Councilmember Matthews. So next we have our report by Commissioner Committee, and we have an annual report from the Economic Development Committee, and that will be presented by the Chair, which is Serge Mahalo. So welcome, Serge.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's good to be here. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Perfect. Yes, so I wanted to come here with the annual report for 2021. We've had a few new members, but we've been holding it pretty steady. We're here to serve as an advisory council to you guys for manufacturing, retail, tourism, business expansion, revitalization, and agriculture, which we've been excited to find projects relating to, which I'll list here. We've had a lot of different members, like I said. We have a full staff now, or a full board now. We've oriented those guys on the city objectives having to do with economic development, the strategic plan, the Brown Act regarding member communication, and the Economic Development Committee history. We've discussed our visions, goals, priorities, and potential projects, which have been um, in abundance. We received a presentation by Dalo Freitas and Gillen Martin on the strategic arts plan, which we were very excited about. We reviewed the draft infill market study and gave feedback on that. We formed the Business of the Year subcommittee and worked with the City Council subcommittee to recognize Esteban's as the City of Arcata 21 Business of the Year awardee. We received a report on the outcome of the community visiting session. We've had a discussion on outdoor dining and expressed support for encroachment permits to allow more outdoor dining, which was amazing to see all those come into fruition. We received a presentation by myself, Serge Mahela, on my podcast, The Bootstrap Business Show, which we feature local business and local entrepreneurial people that are starting up. We created a subcommittee for MACO, which is the Micro Enterprise Home Kitchen Act, which would allow people to operate small scale commercial kitchens out of their homes, which we were also excited about to bring that just into light to see if that was an option for us. We talked about Oyster Fest and received a report from the Arcata Main Street for the goals for 2021. We discussed ways that this committee can support the Chamber of Commerce and Arcata Main Street. We received an update on the community block development or the community block grant coronavirus response 2-3 application. We provided recommendations on the proposed formula restaurant ordinance amendment. We received a presentation on the Arcata Gateway Plan and ranked the implementation measure priority areas further discussed by the Planning Commission. So things such as alternative transportation, connectivity, and trails within the project, low income, mixed income housing, mixed use development, such as light industrial, job creation, 50+ jobs is what we talked about, beautification and community support services. We went on to receive a report from the MACO subcommittee about our findings. We received an update from Meredith Matthews on the Arcata Chamber of Commerce retreat. Thank you, Meredith. We received the staff presentation on the selection of Arcata's Business of the Year. We received an update on the second mass distribution event to businesses. We received a presentation from May Patino, the coordinator for the Humboldt Food Policy Council on MACO, and some of the kind of ways that that could improve the economic development on a small scale in our community. We, excuse me, we reviewed the metrics and nomination form of the subcommittee uses to select the Business of the Year. We formed the Business of the Year subcommittee to review nominations and provide feedback to the City Council subcommittee for the 2022 Business of the Year. We had a discussion on the America Rescue Plan Act funding. We received a briefing on the Redwood Coast Economic Development Subcommittee or Summit, which is an event. And we formed a MACO subcommittee to address the city's concern or the county's concerns about some of the roadblocks that would be inside of the getting that MACO Act implemented. We had a discussion on how to bring businesses back to the Plaza Improvement Task Force and the Community Ambassador Program. And we showed some support and seeing those programs be implemented. And we received and reviewed local employment and sales tax data on a routine basis, which we go over the sales tax numbers very routinely. And it's very interesting to look at. Our 2021 goals and activities. We wanted to support the strategic infill development, including the Arcata Gateway Plan, and assist in evaluation opportunities and constraints regarding commercial and industrial lands for their highest and best use, and to review and develop recommendations on future commercial and industrial target markets. We wanted to provide business support, develop strategies for businesses development, and entrepreneurial support based on an increasingly changing consumer base and ongoing COVID-19 restrictions. We want to create and support opportunities to address the needs of local and regional business communities, such as we would like to support the plaza improvements that support public safety, support economic development, and community-based needs. And we'd also like to support the Community Ambassador Program, and we would like to support the city's sustainable community values, such as zero waste, greenhouse gas reduction, energy independence, active and alternative transportation modes, open space and ecosystem, diverse and affordable housing, commercial and industrial spaces, such as incubator cooperatives, small housing, commercial and office spaces. And we want to support the strategic arts plan's efforts, finally. So those are our, that's my report on 2021 and some of our goals moving forward.
Thank you for that report, Serge, and thank you for all the work that you and the committee do. We appreciate that. Do we have any questions or comments for Serge?
I just wanted to ask just if you wanted to go into a slightly bit more detail about the MECO, the home kitchen stuff, and just how that's playing out and what we could look forward to with that, because that does sound like a really cool program and opportunity for Arcata.
Yeah, it is cool. It's a state level program, and there is a couple roadblocks within getting it implemented, mainly the fact that the county doesn't seem to be prepared to implement or to have the staff to be able to support the program. There was kind of a cool thing that Blue Lake had done where they hired, I believe it was the health department from Fortuna, to monitor the program and help them implement the program, which was pretty revolutionary for them to be able to pull that off right here in Blue Lake. Some of the bigger cities down south have been able to do it effectively, but it is a really cool micro enterprise program that would allow people to cook a limited number of meals, kind of like, on a small scale commercial format, and then either deliver them or have people pick them up from their homes. And there's some guidelines within there. So we're in support of it, but it is a little bit technical, the fact that there's a limited amount of staff available, I believe.
Wonderful. Very cool. Thank you, Serge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for all the work you and the rest of the committee do. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I got a little bit confused where it says 2021 goals and activities. That should say 2022. So those are things you're going to do in the future, not things you've already done.
I believe you're right. But yeah, some of those were our 2021 goals that carry over, but I believe
Gotcha.
that should be 2022 goals, which are very similar to our 2021.
Could you tell me about the work you've done on the Economic Development Strategic Plan? When did you guys start doing that work?
On the strategic plan, I don't believe we've had a lot of changes. We try to follow the strategic plan as much as we can. Let's look here. Yeah, I think we more so follow the strategic plan.
It's listed as an accomplishment. So that's what I was curious about. And it's something that, I recently brought up with the council. I didn't know we had a strategic plan, so I was hoping to ask the EDC to come up with one, but it's good that it's already on your radar. On the area gateway, the Arcata Gateway Area Plan, you talked about job creation of 50+ jobs. What kind of jobs are those?
We were hoping that it would include some kind of light industrial or commercial space was kind of the two main things that people they wanted to see, kind of like that mixed use kind of development in there. So we had talked about 50 jobs, kind of long standing, I believe.
Okay. And then item 26, you said received and reviewed local employment and sales tax data on a routine basis. From, the analysis you've been able to do of the sales tax data, which area of the city do you feel like generates the most sales tax?
I would have to look at it. I would have to pull up that.
Okay.
It's a pretty technical report there, and it tells you pretty thoroughly through the sectors who's collecting the sales tax. That is like the retail sales tax.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thanks again for all the volunteering you guys do. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Serge, and thanks, Jen Dart, who's your liaison. You guys do wonderful work. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Jen. Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments for Serge? Okay, thank you, Serge, for being here. We appreciate the report.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any members of the public that are waiting to comment on this item?
And I'd also like to request, could we please increase the public comment period to 4 minutes per person? I just feel like that'd be the best interest of people's First Amendment and public participation.
I don't think we're going to do that tonight on the fly. That would be something that we should discuss.
No, you can just do it as the mayor. You get to decide.
I'll ask my colleagues.
I think what we've kind of been standard doing is 2 minutes for the first early oral, and then we've been doing 3 minutes on items in the second communication, and I feel pretty comfortable with that because that's what we've routinely been doing.
I'm also comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable with that. It doesn't seem like we've been cutting a huge amount of people off, so.
Yeah, it does seem like often. We'll see right now, but it does seem like pretty often people don't have enough time to express themselves. And I know sometimes people just want to be heard.
And that is exactly why we are all available for phone calls and emails and meetings outside of this, but in order to keep our public meetings at a acceptable time, I'm comfortable keeping it to 2 or 3 minutes. So that's what we'll do for this evening.
All right, so we have one public comment on this item. It's under call-in user 2. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Can you hear me? Thank you. My name is Kent Sawatsky, and I spend quite a bit of time in the supervisor's chamber. 3 minutes works pretty well for the public. 2 minutes is really short, to be honest with you, since I participate extensively in these forums. Today I wish to address something that's not on your agenda, and I do a lot of assessment regarding...
Ken, I think you said that you were wanting to speak on something that wasn't on our agenda, and you can absolutely do that, but that comes up next.
That comes up next. I thought that's what you were... So I did want to make comments also. I thought I'd been completely precluded from your economic report there. Is that what I'm speaking on then?
Yes, thank you.
I did. So I'm glad that you clarified that for me. Thank you. The economy of Arcata is, in my opinion, is all of a sudden being saved. I do a lot with economic development, and I think your savior is the Humboldt State turning into a polytechnic school rather than closing down. I think that's going to be your future. We understand housing and everything hopefully will boom in Arcata, and you will probably economically be transitioning away from a lot of what you have here, which is cannabis production and manufacturing, because the farmers themselves are no longer able to function in Humboldt County. So during this transition period, I hope this sounds like they do a great job with your volunteers there. Hope they follow very closely the benefits Arcata will be having, and you guys will get regular reports hopefully coming out of Humboldt State. I look forward to all of Humboldt County benefiting, but Arcata especially from our new economy that I see happening in Arcata. So thank you for the opportunity to speak on your committee there and the report you had out.
Thank you, Ken. Do we have anyone else for this agenda item?
Nobody else for this agenda item.
Okay, so that takes us into early oral communications, and this 15-minute time period is provided for people to address the council on matters that are not on the agenda. So, Ken, I hope you raise your hand again. We'll get back to you. At the conclusion of all oral communications, the council may respond to statements. Any request that requires council action will be set by the council for a future agenda or referred to staff. Speakers addressing the council at this time are limited to 2 minutes, and we can take up to 7 speakers. Please raise your hand if you are on Zoom, or press *9 if you are calling in by phone and wish to make a comment.
All right, our first speaker is call-in user 2. Go ahead, Ken. Kent? Yep, go ahead. We can.
Took a couple tries there. I got muted and unmuted. That's technology these days. I experience that all the time. I did have a concern. I have some information, and I I do statistics is one of the things I do to analyze things. And Arcata seems to be having a trend that's not a very positive trend in a certain way. And I wanted to bring this to your attention. You probably already are aware, but I did a few quick little stats here regarding your litigation, your CIR Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund charges that I have in here. So I went back and I went from 2015 to 2019, and your average through that fund was $97,991, roughly $98,000. But going through 2020 and 2021, and that's not all of 2021, that's through 11/17 of 2021, you had a total of $619,253.68, which comes to $309,626 versus that roughly $98,000. That's an increase for those 2 years of 3.16 times. And that's something that says something is either it's an anomaly or you have a problem. I highly recommend that you take some time and agendize and do it in the public forum and discuss why the city is incurring these costs. I fund litigation, a lot of it for environmental things. Unfortunately, Mother Nature gave me basically close to unlimited funds. But I did want to bring that to your attention, and you need to work at avoiding this litigation. That takes skills, and I hope you guys will find somebody or work on that a little further with your staff to not have those very high costs in litigation. So thank you for my opportunity for 2 minutes here.
Thank you, Ken, for taking the time to calculate that for us.
All right, our next speaker is call-in user 5. Go ahead.
Arcata, council members, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, this is Oz of Arcata, and I'd like to speak to the city council to inform that we have discussed among ourselves as neighbors, and some of us have institutional memory of our public water system. And it's been many years since I think my memory dates back to the Mayor Michael Naki, and the last time we seriously considered our municipal water supply. Our water supply came from Jolly Giant Creek until 1964, and then it was moved to the Mad River, and that induced demand that was planned by the city council then facilitated the development of the Sunnybray. Those 200 homes in addition were served to that induced demand. Today, when we jump forward all these years in time, we've done virtually nothing to increase the capacity for the induced demand. The project is a great gateway at Plaza Point and Sorrel Place. We're using the same antiquated system, and it hasn't been up for an agenda item to discuss what we need to do for our future, for our sustainability. Maybe a city water bond. There's all kinds of things we could do to alleviate the exponential increase to the sewer and water ratepayers of the city. That's the one way, sure way that we can be sustainable and be proactive and look to our future. Water is the key. And without that, there's no development that I can see. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
It was really hard for me to hear what Oz was saying. Did you guys catch it? Could somebody explain it to me, please?
He's concerned about the increased demand of water and that we should look into future feasibility of updating our water supply and public water system with increased demand with new buildings and gateway and things like that.
Thank you.
If that's what everybody else got.
All right, next speaker, call-in user 4. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Joanne McGreta McGarry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, greetings to the City Council virtually. I'm hoping that next time we will be in person. I wasn't able to get on Zoom tonight. I want to thank the 2 council members who responded to my email of yesterday. And I wanted to apologize to City Manager Deemer. I neglected to include you as a CC on that email. I am so appreciative that you all are there in person and continuing to serve us. And I hope that we can talk further in person at different moments about some of the issues that I had in that email. But of course, I am going to remind you that we are in a climate emergency, and it had been declared by the city of Arcata back in September 2019. I would really urge you to consider the importance of an emergency declaration regarding climate, because it hopefully will enable us to move much more quickly, less bureaucratically, and effectively, urgently to do what we need to do to avoid climate catastrophe in our local community. I am hoping that maybe you'll consider taking Earth Day seriously this year, and even if it's low-key simple, an acknowledgement in the community of Earth Day and what we need to do as a community to protect the Earth and ourselves. There's so much other things I could talk to you about, but for right now, I just want to thank you for reading my email and responding to those who did, and I will send a copy to Suzanne and looking forward to the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
All right, our next speaker is Uri. Go ahead, Uri. Uri Driscoll, go ahead. We can't hear you yet.
Are you asking me to go ahead?
Yes, go ahead, Uri. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Well, okay, good evening, everyone. I was a little bit surprised today, and I received the...
I talked to you about, but for right now, I just want to thank you for reading my email and responding to those who did, and I will send a copy to Suzanne. And looking forward to the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne.
All right, our next speaker is Uri. Go ahead, Uri.
Oh, okay. Anyway, good evening, everyone. I was a bit surprised today when I received...
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Are you asking me to go ahead?
Yes, go ahead, Uri. Yes.
Okay, there must be some time delay I was not aware of. Forgive me.
Yes, go ahead.
Great. Well,
There is a recording.
Okay.
I don't know if you're hearing it in the chamber, but there is recording coming over
a little
Zoom.
bit surprised today, and I
of
received
previous
the...
discussions.
I'm gonna, let me call back on my phone. Can
Okay.
I do that? I think it'll be a little easier.
I think you're on your phone also. Are you calling user 5?
No, I'm not on my phone.
Okay.
I'm just on Zoom.
Okay, I think you're good. If you go ahead now, I think you'll be good. If you could just mute your other device.
I don't have anything else
Okay.
on, actually. Oh, okay.
Do you have a TV on, Uri?
No. Good evening, everyone. I was a bit surprised today when I received... It is something very odd. I'm gonna call in the phone number and mute my computer.
Okay.
Yeah, there's just some time delay I was not aware of with me. I'm gonna call back in.
Okay. All right, our next speaker is Margie. Go ahead, Margie.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Margie Nolson, and I live up in Neeland, and thank you for letting me be here and speak. I just wanted to let you know that I sadly had a break-in of my vehicle at the Arcata Marsh on Monday, and a window was broken. Just my lunch was taken out of the back seat. And another vehicle right near mine was also broken into. I know you know what a gem the Arcata Marsh is, both for us locally, for walks, for bird watching, and nationally it's recognized, our wastewater treatment system. Many people come here to experience the marsh. So I'm really sad about this trend that is happening of safety issues at the marsh, more break-ins. And sadly, we have a real lack of police presence there. I did speak to someone at the department today, Brian, I'm not sure, and he was very helpful, but he said they come at sunrise and sunset to deal with the gate, and that's it. This happened at noon. So I don't know if we need to have more, if we can set up some sort of community patrol, if we can try to have more police presence, if we can have video surveillance. I'm sure this is something that you probably all have talked about. I talked to the George working at the visitor center today. You know, he's very aware of the problem. His vehicle was broken into at the visitor center parking lot in December, I believe. Mine was right on I Street near the kiosk. So I don't think I have anything more to say about this. It just saddens me, and I hope that we can address it. And I, as a community member, would be more than happy to somehow be involved in
Margie, that is your 2 minutes, but thank you very much for,
Thanks.
so sorry about the break-in, but also thank you for being willing to be part of the solution if possible. We appreciate that. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, next speaker, call-in user 8. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Maya Makino. I'm a lifelong Arcata resident, and I'm calling in favor of the Gateway Plan and more affordable housing in Arcata. I've lived here for most of my life, and I want to continue living here. I love the community, and I think it's a great place to live for younger people and artists. But I want to make sure that there will be affordable housing, and especially with the growth that's happening to Arcata, whether we plan for it or not, I'm hoping that the city will go through with the Gateway Plan and make affordable housing a priority. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next speaker, call-in user 9. Go
Okay,
ahead.
I think that must be me. Is that correct?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, hi. This is Uriah Driscoll calling back in. Sorry about the goof up later on or before. I got the Humboldt Trail Council newsletter today. I was a little bit surprised to see that the Ridge Trail project is a priority for the trail tax that was levied on Arcata residents last year. As you may or may not be aware, there's been no outreach to the impacted, potentially impacted neighborhood up here since we had to file a lawsuit in order for environmental and traffic safety issues had to be addressed. And that is still in litigation. So what this is a little bit confusing is the city applied for a permit to the county for an encroachment permit, and there's really no indication that any of the environmental issues, traffic safety issues were addressed in that permit. So I guess this is just my addressing the council is to perhaps keep a little bit better eye on your staff if they're promoting something that really isn't resolved yet. It's wasting an awful lot of taxpayer money, and already the city has spent about $80,000 on your own attorney. That's not going to include the amount of money that you probably end up paying our attorney when this is all settled out. So it's just a little bit concerning. As you know, I was a major supporter and contributor, raised funds and everything for this trail. But your staff, I think, really needs a little bit closer eye on what they're doing so they don't run into these very expensive problems. That tax fund that was put on the city of Arcata residents essentially is going to be spent on attorney fees for just this one project. And that seems a little bit wasteful. I'm really sorry to say that. That's all I've got for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Uri.
All right, there's no more early oral communications at this time.
Just a couple comments based on the speaker's feedback. I just want to say I do agree with Mr. Sawatsky. I think that'd be a healthy conversation for us to have. And I also agree with Joanne. Really appreciated her email. I think it would be good for us to re-agendize declaring a climate emergency, kind of renew our vows, if you will, and kind of hold ourselves accountable. Thanks.
Okay, that takes us to the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of any of these items. If discussion is required, the item is removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, council members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. So we have item A, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of January 28th, 2022. B, approve the minutes of the City Council meeting of February 2nd, 2022. C, a biweekly report on general warrants. D, adopt resolution number 212-42, approving a notification of intent to comply with Senate Bill 1383 regulations, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. E, approve amended memorandum of understanding between Cooperation Humboldt and the City of Arcata for Comunidad Unida del Norte de Arcata, also known as CUNA, for Valley West Community Engagement, and authorize the city manager to execute all applicable documents. F, authorize the city manager to enter into a purchase and sale agreement with Cal Poly Humboldt Advancement Foundation to acquire assessor's parcel number 505-251-011 and a public access easement over a portion of assessor's parcel number 505-251-013 adjacent to the Arcata Marsh and Wildlife Sanctuary. And G, proclamation recognizing February 2022 as National Children's Dental Health Month. After consent calendar approval, Councilmember Watson will read the National Children's Dental Health Month proclamation. So would any council member like to remove an item from the consent calendar?
I would please like to remove item D, E, and F.
Okay, any others? Is there a member of the public or staff that requests an item be removed from the consent calendar?
Just giving it a second, and no additional items.
Okay, so why don't we start with a motion on items A, B, C, and G.
I move that we approve items A, B, C, and G on the consent calendar.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. So that takes us to item D.
Yeah, so, our agenda comes out on Friday and gives us a few days before the council meeting to be able to consider all the information in it. There's a lot of information, this week, and quite frankly, I wasn't able to get to everything in the packet. I also didn't, I usually have a meeting with staff where they go over the agenda with me, and that didn't happen this week. So I just wanted to go over these things so to make sure I had an understanding on them before voting. So this item, a letter of intent, did all the council members get a chance to read State Bill 1383?
As I'm on the board of HWMA, I'm pretty well versed in this. I'm sorry, I wish you could have reached out to me.
Thanks.
I definitely didn't read it verbatim, but I read the update in the packet and understand it pretty well.
And that would be the same for me.
Great. So, maybe Meredith can help me. I'm just, could you give me an explanation of what State Bill 1383 is?
And we have staff certainly available to do an overview if you would.
Yeah, I'd prefer to hear from the council.
I've been on the HWMA board very briefly, but let's let the staff talk, and then if I can give any clarification, I'll try.
The Environmental Services Department has been leading coordination across the region for complying with SB 1383, and Deputy Director Emily Benby has been one of the city representative and one of the municipal leaders working across the region on this effort. So I'd like to pass the staff report to her.
Sure, thank you, Director Sinkhorn. So SB 1383, when the council last saw it, I believe it was in May of 2021, where staff provided an overview of the legislation. To really briefly summarize that legislation, there are 6 essential components, so to speak, of 1383. One is providing organics collection services to all residents and businesses, establishing an edible food recovery program, conduct education and outreach to the community, procure recyclable and recovered organic products, secure access to recycling and edible food recovery capacity, and monitor compliance and conduct enforcement. And so within those main categories, there is a vast amount of effort that needs to happen to fully come into compliance with each, most notably starting universal organics curbside collection, given that there is no current facility in Humboldt County that can handle this collection on a regional basis. And so since early 2021, the Solid Waste Local Task Force formed an ad hoc committee to regionally approach SB 1383 compliance. Since then, we've been working together, and HWMA has hired Edgar and Associates to assist with compliance on a regional effort. In January of 2021, SB 619 was passed, which is relief legislation enabling municipalities to have an additional year to come into compliance for SB 1383. So the implementation date for 1383 was initially set to be January 1st of 2022. However, the CalRecycle final guidelines did not come out until November of 2020. And so acknowledging that really short time frame between release of the final guidelines and implementation date, coupled with the impacts of COVID-19, SB 619 legislation was passed to offer a relief from penalty fees. And so the item that is before the council tonight is to authorize a resolution submitting what's called a notification of intent to comply to CalRecycle, which creates that additional 1-year timeline for the city of Arcata to come into compliance working regionally with HWMA member agencies and Solid Waste Local Task Force members.
You said that a lot better than I could have. Thank you so much. I will say, though, that we did receive a presentation, about all of the waste that is collected in Humboldt County, and it's breathtaking how much food waste we have that gets collected and goes into regular, garbage. So.
Also, to start on your home base level, I'm pretty sure the city is still offering our compost bins for $25. So to even divert more of that waste, you can do it yourself too.
So Brett, basically it's just saying, because of COVID and because we're so rural and because it came out so close to the time that we were supposed to be able to do it, we're just going to say, look, we're going to do it. We just need this extra year to kind of make sure we can come into compliance.
And here's the plan of how we're going to do it.
Can you tell me more about the collection and recycling aspect of it, what the requirements are, how we meet that?
Sure. So there are very robust final regulations around collection requirements in general. So in a really brief summary, SB 1383 requires universal curbside collection of compost materials. And it also includes bin color designation. So a 3-container system, 1 municipal solid waste, 1 recycling, and 1 organics green waste materials.
Thanks. So is this largely around food? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And then what's enforcement look like?
Enforcement is not yet set to begin. Clarifying question, Councilmember Watson, when you say enforcement, are you referring to enforcement of community members or enforcement of the city?
Yeah, I would say anybody that, I guess we're applying this to, if it's community members or if it's businesses, how do we make sure people are complying?
Sure. So the enforcement is really, really robust. There is a monitoring component, there is an education and outreach component, and the monitoring component applies to both franchise haulers as well as the processing facilities to ensure that there's not contamination. Enforcement on a general education and outreach level for example, a resident who isn't enrolled in organics collection or a business would probably look very similarly to the city as how we're currently enforcing municipal solid waste in general. Fortunately, the city of Arcata already has universal mandated curbside collection. And so the enforcement process would be looking very similar. It would just be folding in this additional material. The timeline for starting to enforce is tiered. So certain elements of SB 1383 and the enforcement of those elements are tiered to the type of SB 1383 rule as well as the threshold of businesses. So there's a tier 1 and a tier 2 classification of businesses, for example. And so tier 1 businesses are enforceable at a different timeline than tier 2.
You sound really well informed on this, and I really appreciate that. I was looking at the resolution, and it says, whereas City of Arcata is or expects to be facing continuing violations of the regulations. What are those violations? What can we expect?
Sure. So with the submittal of the notification of intent to comply, we don't expect to face any violations at all. And so that is the main intent of this resolution and the submittal of the notification. Technically, on January 1st of 2022, the SB 1383 regulations came fully into effect. And so without the submittal of the notification of intent to comply, the City of Arcata could be subject to a violation penalty of $10,000 per day. However, with the submittal of this notification and the approval of CalRecycle, we're no longer subject to the potential violations for one additional year while we come into compliance.
Thank you so much. Let me see. Is there going to be a cost? So I see task 1 is develop 3 container collection program with our franchise hauler to collect residential and commercial organics. Is that going to be a cost that's passed on to residents?
That is all yet to be determined. Where we currently are in our process is we have contracted, as I mentioned, with Edgar and Associates to start to develop our overall compliance roadmap. Once we understand what that roadmap will look like, the City of Arcata will be working with Recology as our franchise hauler to understand what the impacts to rates may or may not be. And so between now and then, we'll be really doing the work to understand, are there ways that we could potentially offset potential increased costs or not? I would say rate increases are likely, given when you're bringing in a third waste stream, you then have a new type of bin and an entirely new hauling route, a new truck to handle that potentially. Though the hope is that the rate increase won't be too significant, given SB 1383 doesn't create new waste, it just shifts existing waste. So in other words, organic waste that is currently being hauled and processed in the solid waste container will shift over to the organic waste container, thereby resulting in some incremental rate increase most likely, but hopefully not too significant.
So that's actually a good question. I'm so sorry. So we do have some local, we have full cycle compost, and we also have the local worm guy. So if, people choose to have one of those local people pick up their compost, will they be able to opt out of, having their waste collected by Recology?
You bring up a really good point that city staff has been considering very heavily. We aren't at the point in negotiations with Recology where we can say for sure one way or another, though it is the city's full content to create a pathway where those small scale local composting businesses will continue. Exactly what that will look like is yet to be determined. And one thing I will say to help frame the conversation is that the submittal of the notification of intent to comply is a piece of the overall public process, but there will be many additional opportunities for public process and public comment when it comes to rate setting, for example, being one of them.
And then task 2, the outreach and education. Is that something we've been able to kind of flesh out yet, or is that something that we're going to still develop?
Edgar and Associates is in process of developing that plan as well as part of the overall compliance roadmap. Once we have a draft plan, the city, as well as all of our other member agency, HWMA member agencies, will have the opportunity to review, and we'll make sure that we provide opportunity for public comments at the request of the council, as far as whether it comes through city council at a public hearing, or if there's a particular request of the council as to how we develop that education and outreach plan. We're certainly happy to follow council direction.
Thanks. And then, let me see. So yeah, it says we're investing in achieving full and effective compliance for SB 1383 by hiring consultants. Do we have an idea yet of what the cost of that's going to be?
Yes, the contract is being managed through HWMA. A vast majority of the contract cost was contributed by Humboldt County. Member agencies were all calculated at a proportional share. HWMA contributed the vast majority of Arcata's portion. And I don't have the specific amount offhand for the city of Arcata. It would take me a moment to dig it up, but I will say the cost is less than $5,000 for the entire consultant contract.
I think it was $3,000. That's what it said. I think that's what it said.
Thank you. Yep, that sounds correct to me.
Okay, that's great. And then I was just a little bit confused. I'm looking at Exhibit A, SB 619 notification of intent to comply. Under number 2, the second paragraph, where it talks about attempts to develop an aerobic digestion facility have stalled out and is being reviewed. And then the general order for composting operations, the pads and ponds required are expensive. I guess where is the challenge of locating such a facility? Where would all the organic material go?
That is the critical question that Edgar and Associates, as well as HWMA, are taking the lead on researching alternatives. Once we have an understanding of possible alternatives, the different member agencies will be providing review and input on what might be possible going forward. But I currently do not have an answer to that question.
Those are all my questions. Thank you very much, Emily.
Okay, so item E, do you want to start on that one?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wasn't sure what this was. Again, I didn't have time to get to everything before the meeting, so I was just hoping to get a better understanding of this, from the council or from staff. Please.
Yes, so we approved of a certain amount of ARPA money, and I was going to actually ask the city manager to clarify again how much of the total that we...
Yeah, so this is a continuation. So one of the ARPA-funded projects was support to the Valley West neighborhood, and we've done that through a contract with Cooperation Humboldt. They have a program called CUNA, and this would extend that contract to fill out the first year. You have set aside funds for 3 years of ARPA to operate a program in the Valley West area. Since this is just a brand new contract and a brand new consultant for the city to be working with, the staff recommendation is just to approve that in 1-year increments, which is pretty common for us in terms of these types of contracts.
Yeah, and I'm the CUNA liaison, and I've been really heartened to see the positive impacts that they're making over in the Valley West area. They've had several opportunities for public engagement, lots of cleanups, an art market, and it seems like they're on a really great trajectory, and I'm really happy that we're deciding to extend this.
Great. Is the contract in the packet?
It is. And this is the same contract that was brought before the council earlier. And even though it was under the council approval amount, we just wanted to make sure that the council saw that contract early on, recognizing that the intent was to be a longer-term contract. So this is the second time that you've seen the same contract.
So can you maybe explain to us why we're approving a year at a time instead of, since we have set aside money for 3 years, why we're doing it in those 1-year increments?
Yeah, I had that same question. It seems like it would be really nice to do, 2 or 3 year contract. I think it'd give them more security. And, I don't know what kind of contract this is. If there's any stipulations, is it at will? Can people just walk away from it at any time? In that case, there wouldn't be really any risk to extending it. And it would save the council time, staff time.
Yes, so Councilmember Matthews and Watson, I'd be happy to speak to that. The Environmental Services Department, as well as staff from Community Development, have been working in partnership with CUNA for this effort. The staff has recommended, well, at first, when you approved an MOU, the council had previous limits for contracts, and so we had council direction for partnering with CUNA, Cooperation Humboldt, to really engage the Valley West community on community connectedness and beautification improvement opportunities. And so we really had a 3-month period to start. And now we really recognize the great work that they've accomplished, as Councilmember Matthews has been speaking about. Additionally, they've been continuing weekly cleanups, a monthly Adopt a Park cleanup at Carlson Park. They have been really engaging businesses in Valley West with the intent to really develop more of a business network, similar to or an offshoot of Arcata Main Street. And they really have been engaging community members also on input for how to spend the council's set aside of $15,000 in this year's budget for community connection improvements in Valley West, as well as beautification opportunities. And CUNA is right now holding a public meeting for brainstorming for a participatory budgeting process to get community input on how best to spend that $15,000 to make an impact in Valley West. So I just wanted to summarize the great work that they have been doing. Also, we would say this is a new collaboration that the city has had with this organization, with Cooperation Humboldt. Cooperation Humboldt has a depth of commitment and staffing within their organization, but this is a new, they've also, as an organization and nonprofit, taken on a lot of projects and contracts in a short amount of time. So we really wanted to ensure that that the city's investment is sound on the ground, and that is what we are finding so far. CUNA and Cooperation Humboldt have been doing an excellent job. We will say in this first 3 months of our MOU, there have been significant staff changes for coordinating CUNA. In staff's discussions with Cooperation Humboldt staff, we recognize that they are very committed. We have the same co-coordinator that is now continuing in that co-coordinating position. Cooperation Humboldt is currently hiring for another co-coordinator. But just since we've had these staffing changes in the first 3 months, staff felt it prudent to really be looking at this 1-year time frame of a contract renewal, but also happy to get input on that. Also, if you have other questions, I do believe that David Cobb, a representative from Cooperation Humboldt, is in attendance in the meeting as well.
Yeah, I think my questions have been answered. I kind of understand what's going on with it. And I just want to give Mr. Cobb an opportunity to say a few words if you'd like to.
David, do you have any comments? Go ahead.
Thank you very much for the incredible kind words from staff and council. We are eager to continue this relationship and are just grateful for the opportunity. And I will take this opportunity to also add that it has been a real joy to work with the staff. They have been incredibly helpful as we navigate this, and we are very confident to be able to continue this contract to completion.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's good for me. I'm ready to move on to the next item.
Okay, so item F, go ahead.
We're going to do it all together, I think. Yeah, so again, I was just hoping to get a better understanding of this. I think I'm familiar with it. Yeah, if I could just please get an explanation from staff on what's going on with this, I'd be grateful.
Certainly. So the Environmental Services Department has been working with HSU on a potential acquisition of a smaller marsh parcel that is in the north, adjacent to the north part of the Arcata Marsh off of Samoa Boulevard. And the city has really been talking with HSU about these, opportunities. The city sees, this as a potential parcel for future mitigation for other projects within the city. It also is really contiguous with the existing Arcata Marsh. And really could, especially with a public access easement to Samoa Boulevard, facilitate enhanced coastal access from other parts of Arcata, particularly West Arcata. And so that's just sort of a background on what the project, how the project has come about. HSU and Cal Poly Humboldt, excuse me for my outdated speaking. Cal Poly Humboldt staff have been really helpful to work with. The city and Cal Poly Humboldt agreed on an appraiser and have agreed on an appraised value that the department had budgeted within this fiscal year's budget. And so we have the funds on hand to complete that transaction. The Planning Commission previously reviewed this potential acquisition for consistency with the general plan and found that was in conformance. And I would also say, and Deputy Director Benvey will have additional input, but this was also a topic first brought to the council in closed session in 2019.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Are there any more questions?
No, I'll move that we approve item D, E, and F on the consent calendar.
And we do have a couple of raised hands for public comment.
Oh, okay.
We've got a motion. You could get a second, but then we'll take that public comment if you'd like.
I'll second.
All right. So call in user 10. Go ahead on D, E, or F consent calendar item. Call in user 10. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Joanne McGreta-McGarry.
We can.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate the council taking this SB matter off the consent calendar. And I just would like to comment as a kind of layperson citizen of Arcata, when I see some of these agenda items that are so bureaucratically written and not very clear, it's a lot of hunting I have to do to find out what it's really all about. And that was the case with this particular one. I thought it might be the food waste issue and all. And I just would like to say that I understand because of COVID and lots of other things, the delay in municipalities throughout California and being able to really significantly develop a effective program of picking up the organic waste at people's homes and this and that. But I just would like to share that in a climate crisis mode, I have myself instigated a small little compost system for the creamery building neighbors, and we have done 2 backyard compost bins purchased by 2 different residents of the city. created a very effective backyard composting so that food waste from the creamery building is not being put into the garbage and into the landfill for methane. And I really do think a lot of grassroots projects can take place before this massive development thing happens, and just people don't know about it. So just start talking to people about what they can do and what you're doing to get a system in place. That meanwhile, people are willing to throw their food waste in a compost bin, or enlist some other service to do it before a big, huge project gets implemented. So I just want to say a little more clarity sometimes on some of these issues, and then we're doing something already anyway. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Joanne.
Can I add to that? Sure. You can also bring your compost to the community garden at 11th and F. They have a big compost situation back there as well.
All right, next speaker, call-in user 12. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi there, Uri Driscoll again. Now, I do live outside the city limits, and of course, we have a compost, which is very handy. But I can certainly see some significant issues with having a separate garbage can set out, and I just don't see any real plan attached to accepting the responsibility, and I don't hear any real discussion on what happens if you don't sign this intent to implement this this Senate bill. The other point about this acquisition, now I'm not sure how many of you are aware, but the city of Arcata owns, I believe last I had checked, more land and acreage per capita than any place in the country. And I'm not sure why this pattern keeps going, because it's basically taking property off the tax rolls and off of the ability to generate revenue, which the city obviously depends on to function. So while I know these projects often get rubber stamped, I think that there is something that really needs to be looked at a little bit more carefully before just accepting the liability and responsibility of more and more acreage that, like I said, you guys already have more acreage per capita than pretty much anywhere in the country. So I just be careful of that and maybe look a little bit closer at what the responsibility and liabilities are for these acquisitions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uri.
All right, next speaker, call-in user 11. Go ahead.
Ken Sawatsky, am I caller number 11?
You are.
Thank you. I really appreciate Councilmember Watson pulling some of these things. So many things pass in Humboldt County, in the county forum there, and nobody, even the supervisors, don't know what they are. I do a lot of recycling. I make dirt, and I strongly support this. Unfortunately, I believe, and it must have been 7 years ago or something in that time frame, a big project was done, and this didn't prove out to be feasible at that time. The question I have, the clarity is as an individual, can these people opt out of this particular project? Like I say, I make my own dirt. And I did want to make a comment that Cal Recycle has probably done more damage to the recycling business than any organization I've ever seen. They threw us under the bus. Everybody had cans in their garages for months because they weren't willing to redeem them. And this seems to be another unfunded mandate by big government. And I really doubt whether we're not going to all face significant costs to implement this. You have a complete different stream. Each of those streams have to be handled separately, as we spoke. So it sure would be nice for you, I would recommend you actually do what you can, but contest it and find some way, at least as a minimum, for us to locally participate as individuals. And that's my question. Are we actually legally able to opt out as an individual and do our own recycling, same as these other speakers have mentioned? So I'm really not too happy with Cal Recycle, as you can tell.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, next speaker is Maggie. Go ahead, Maggie.
Thank you. Good evening, Council and staff. Just quickly want to say Zero East Humboldt has been bird dogging SB 1383 in its development as the legislation was working its way through the state legislature. And then after its passage, we're really pleased about this for a number of reasons. How the details, the devil's in the details, and as it's implemented over the next couple of years, it will be really important for everyone to pay close attention and to weigh in, and there'll be plenty of opportunity to do that. So I just have to say the city of Arcata, we've met with all the councils and staff of all the local jurisdictions and HWMA, and the city of Arcata has really played a leadership role with all of them, and moving forward, this is the right thing to do. This letter of intent is the next logical step. Thanks.
Thank you, Maggie.
Okay, no more public comment.
Okay, so we do have a motion and a second for consent items D, E, and F. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. And that motion passes unanimously.
And then we were going to read the proclamation.
Sure. Would you like to read the proclamation, Councilmember Watson?
Recognizing February 2022 as National Children's Dental Health Month. Whereas February is National Children's Dental Health Month, a time to dedicate ourselves to support our most vulnerable Humboldt County community members, including children and pregnant women, to achieve better dental health outcomes. And whereas oral health is part of overall health and is particularly important for pregnant women for their health and the health of their babies. And whereas we commend the professionals in Humboldt who provide dental care and simultaneously acknowledge the dental workforce shortage that has created limited access for pregnant women into specialty care. And whereas all teeth, including baby teeth, are important for eating, talking, and smiling, babies are not born with the germs that cause tooth decay, and oral bacteria is contagious and can be passed from mother and other caregivers to baby, making it imperative that local pregnant women are supported with establishing good oral hygiene practices for themselves before their baby is born, by navigating them to the dentist, encouraging travel planning to get there, and providing information on good prenatal nutrition, oral hygiene, and how to care for the oral health of their children. And whereas practices such as wiping babies' gums after feeding, lifting the lips to assess health of teeth and gums, brushing newly emerged teeth with fluoride toothpaste 2 times a day, limiting sweet drinks, fruit juice, candy, dried fruits, and other sweets that can cause tooth decay, and making and keeping preventative dental checkups beginning at first tooth or child's first birthday are important for success. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Arcata recognizes February 2022 as National Children's Dental Health Month and calls upon residents, governmental agencies, community stakeholders, and medical and dental providers of Humboldt County to visit www.smilehumboldt.com and work together to address oral health disparities in Humboldt County, beginning with our most vulnerable residents, including pregnant women. Dated today, February 16, 2022, and signed by our Mayor, Stacy Atkins-Salzar.
Thank you for that. Okay, next that takes us into old business. So we
Can I please request a 5-minute break?
I second that.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, okay, we're gonna go for a 5-minute break. Okay, welcome back to our regularly scheduled council meeting. So next we're moving into old business, which is item A, approve the Old Arcata Road Rehabilitation and Pedestrian Bikeways Improvement Project. So we'll be starting with a staff report from our city engineer, Nature Kotri, and then we will be opening it up into a public hearing and progressing from there. So could we please have that staff report?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, city staff, and member of public. Before I start the staff report and give you a brief overview, I just want to let you know that David Loya, Dilo from the city side are also here, and they assisted in staff report, and also our consulting team are here if some technical question comes in. So with that, I would like to share my screen. I have 2 slides, and then I'll just start with that. So I'm hoping you're able to see my screen.
Yep.
Yes, I got a thumbs up, so that's great. So most of you have seen part of these slides. I don't know, we've been doing this presentation for the last 3 to 4 years, so some of the slides are repetitive. So what today I plan to do is just, not working for some reason. Okay, today what I plan to do is just try to go over brief history and overview of the project and try to address some of the comments and concerns that were brought up in last, I would say, few years. Most of these comments are already addressed in our environmental document, but I'll be just highlighting a few of them, including parking, drainage, something about the roundabout design, and intersection enhancement. And then after that, I'll hand it over to Director Loya, and then he will be talking about the environmental document. And then after that, at the end, we will take questions from the council members. So with that, a brief history on the project is, this, as you know, this project has been on the books for a long time. First attempt the city made was in 2002 when city proposed a project for Old Arcata Road. However, that project was not very welcomed by the neighbors because that was not the project that they wanted. So since then, we have not done a complete project, but we've been maintaining the street on striping and paving. But in the year 2015-16, some of the residents from the Bayside, they came to city and brought their concerns regarding speeding on the Old Arcata Road, and it needs work. So we had learned our lessons, so we wanted to ensure the project that we proposed is a public project. So with that in mind, we secured $50,000 from our street funds and did a request for a proposal for a consulting team who would help us with public outreach. So as a part of the, after doing RFP, we had a consulting on board, and they helped us doing a public outreach, which included multiple outreach, workshop, walkability assessments, doing a street pop-up demonstration. And so that was all done. And then at the end of that, we had a lot of feedback from we call that a design shared process. The key feedback we received from the design shared process was, please maintain the rural characteristic of the area, improve the safety. People do like existing pathway, which is on the north side of the Jacoby Creek School, and they wanted to maintain that or keep that. So those were the key feedback. However, the main or the desired improvements were, these are only the few of them, there are more than, but these are the highlights of those desired improvements. Traffic calming, pedestrian walkways, people wanted double central yellow line, enhancing the crosswalks, pedestrian safety, school crossing, improving the signage, pavement marking for the school zones, improving the intersection of Old Arcata Road and Jacoby Creek, and do bike and ped-friendly improvements. Overall desire of the committee was, few new individuals were, they wanted to leave the road as it is, but most of the people, they wanted to see some improvements, safety improvements. They wanted to see pedestrian and bike safety. They were the priority. Main was to reduce the speed in the Old Arcata Road as this was near the school. And the separate pathway was preferred because people do enjoy the existing pathway, which is separate from the road. And then we did receive comment that they wanted to improve the parking for the Jacoby Creek School. So at the end of this, we had developed various alternatives for the project. However, we did not have any funding for the improvements. So for funding, you need a project. So we took all the alternatives to the City Council in December for so for approval, so that we could have a project that we could take for seeking funding. In the council meeting, council directed us with the current project to go and seek funding, and that became the project. And at that time, we applied for ATP, which is Active Transportation Program, but city was not successful. However, we applied for other funding, State Transportation Improvement Program, and we were successful to secure the funding for the project. And we have the funding still for that. So since we had funding, we wanted a good design team to help us with that design. So we went through an RFP process. We have a design consulting team on board, and right now we are in the, I would call it, environmental phase of the project, and we have 30% design done for the project. When we hired the consulting, we had a project objective which came out of our design shared process. These are some of the highlights. There are more objectives in the environmental document, but was to reconstruct the old Arcata Road, improve the intersection safety along the whole corridor, decrease the speed, provide traffic calming, extend pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, create a gateway at the southern entrance to the Bayside area, and minimize potential environmental impacts. Project limits starts just south of Buttermilk Lane. It goes all along the old Arcata Road, and it terminates at the city limit and at some of the county area at the intersection of Jacoby Creek and Old Arcata Road. There are 3 schools in that project area. One is Sunnybrae Middle School, there's the Jacoby Creek School, and Mistwood Montessori School there. The cross-section of the street just north of Jacoby Creek includes 2 travel lane, bike lane on both sides, and a separate pathway, which is existing, that will be enhanced as a part of the project. On the south side, from Jacoby Creek to the intersection of Old Arcata Road, there will be 2 travel lanes, 2 bike lanes, 1 bike lane on each side, and a walkway which will connect from school to the intersection of Jacoby Creek and Old Arcata Road. And at the intersection, currently the proposed project is a roundabout. I'll go to the question that came on. It was like, parking was, one of the major concerns from some of the neighbors. So currently, there is no designated parking in the project corridor. People do park on the Old Arcata Road on the west side, also on the north side, but mainly when there's school events, you will see a lot of cars parked, but there's no designated park area along the corridor. And that also is true for the area just south of the Jacoby Creek School. However, as a part of the project, we are planning to enhance that area and provide dedicated parking on north side of the Jacoby Creek School. And also currently it's not shown on the plans, but we plan to show at least add some parking on the south side of Jacoby Creek School, on the south side on the Old Arcata Road, or actually on the west side. The other question came was, we are reducing the parking in the area at the Old Arcata Road and Jacoby Creek Road. So there is currently, you can see there is, I would say currently based on our study, and this study is based on some assumptions that based on some typical parking area, we analyzed the area without the project, what would happen. So our count showed there are 79 parking area existing currently, and we do understand some people do park along the north side of Jacoby Road when there's a Jacoby Creek Road when there are events at the Bayside Community Hall, but they were not counted because they are not there's not enough area for parking. So with the same assumption, after the project, what would be the parking configuration look like? There are definitely some assumptions like dimension of the car, and we assume that there will be some area at the Mistwood area where there's an open space, they could use that area for parking. So with that, our total number after the project came to 68. And we had received public comment that yes, parking is, we need parking. So what we did was to add some parking as a part of the project. And currently there's a ditch on the north side of the Jacoby Creek Road. As a part of the project, we plan to put a culvert and shoulder, and there will be additional parking. So with that additional parking, and the total parking comes out to be approximately 80, which is, I would say, the same as existing conditions. That's what we determined for the parking. Next question was on drainage, how the project is addressing drainage. So the drainage for the, as you can see here, most of the water surface runoff on either side of the old Arcata Road. There are some ditches, and at some area there are strong water infrastructure along the road. Most of the water through surface, they end up on ditches or our stormwater system, and ultimately to Jacoby Creek and ultimately to the bay. So our project will reduce the surface runoff by having those parking area that I mentioned earlier, having a pervious or a permeable parking area. So that will reduce the surface runoff, and we will clean the ditches so that it will have more retention time. So there will be ultimately less runoff. And then the concern was brought about regarding the drainage at the intersection of Old Arcata Road and Jacoby Creek. And then yes, as you can see, there's currently not a lot of storm drain structure in that area. However, most of the water sheet flows from the road to the existing ground. There are some drainage features just east of the Old Arcata Road here, which is maintained by the county. So as a part of the project, to reduce the surface runoff, we will be putting some bioswale landscapes as features of the project. And also we will be including some storm drain structure, which are currently shown on the plans, that will take the surface runoff from here to the existing drainage structure, which is maintained by the county. So we are in communication with the county. We had been in the communication with the county since the inception of the project. They are aware of our project, and we have developed, or not developed, we are using their design standards to design the pipe size that will be installed as a part of the project. And in concept, they are in support of the project. Next is Roundabout. I think that this question came up a few times, what are the alternatives you have considered for the project? So there were a lot of alternatives that were considered for the project. There was a larger roundabout, there was a mini roundabout, there was a T intersection with a multi-way stop, there was a T intersection with a signal, there was an unmodified T intersection with speed enforcement. There was a talk of using the historic Old Arcata Road there, which was there before the current road system is there. But none of those considered alternative meet the project objectives, so they were rejected. So we did analyze three alternatives. As any project, there was a no project alternative, which means do nothing, but that does not meet the project objective. So then there is a project that we are proposing at the intersection of Old Arcata and Jacoby Creek, a roundabout, and then there's a T intersection. So I'll just briefly go over those two alternatives. So this is the T intersection alternative. So yeah, definitely this alternative tries to, first I will just say what are the features here. You can see the features here are, it's trying to channelize the traffic here. There is an enhanced crosswalk with rapid flashing signs where a pedestrian could push a button and the light will blink and the person will be able to cross. Those are here and on the Jacoby Creek Road. There are some islands to narrow the travel lane to reduce the speed. Definitely this alternative tries to reduce the speed. However, as you can see, the main concern on the Old Arcata Road was speeding on the Old Arcata Road. With this channelization, some people might slow down, but this does a good job of slowing the traffic, so hence does not meet the project objective. And then here is the project that we have right now, is a roundabout with 113 feet diameter. As you can see, instead of just channelizing, it has islands which forces people to slow down before they enter and then they go to Old Arcata Road. So there is crosswalk, there are islands, there is a sidewalk that connects the Old Arcata Road to the school and to the Jacoby Creek. There are still rapid flashing sign which will be actuated by pedestrians or bicyclists if somebody wants to use that. There are additional lights at the intersection. There is room for improvement, I would say, for the landscape at the center. It could be just a landscape, or it could be a sculpture. There are a lot of possibilities. So those are the features, and this is the project currently we have right now. The other question that came related to the roundabout was, is this roundabout properly designed to have truck movements, all the truck movements for the timber harvesting or for the fire truck or for the transit bus? So the answer to this, yes, this current project is able to accommodate and navigate the trucks. I would say California legal truck, I would say STAA trucks, which is a little bit longer than the California truck. We confirmed with the fire department, the truck that they have, they will be able to navigate this in roundabout because they are already able to navigate the roundabout, the Foster Avenue roundabout and the St. Louis roundabout. So they will be able to navigate this roundabout as well. And also there was a question regarding timber truck, will that be able to navigate this roundabout? So recently we did analyze that. We had a template for a truck, low boy we call it, with the length of 112 feet long, and we were able to navigate. Definitely there has to be some improvements to be done at the roundabout to make sure the heavy loads will not break the concrete. So some of the concrete island maybe have to reinforce. This landscape area maybe not be green, but it could be a hardscape so that it does not break or it does not make a dip on the landscape. So we need to definitely do that in the final design, but just for the sake of navigating the roundabout, yes, the longer trucks will be able to navigate the roundabouts. So this is just a quick overview and history on the project. I'm going to pass this to David. I'm sure a lot of you will have some questions, so we'll answer that. So with that, I will pass down this to David, and then he can go over the environmental document and CEQA process. Thank you.
Thank you, Nitra. Good evening, Council. And I'll just sort of pick up and give a high-level overview of the CEQA and reserve any detailed analysis or questions about comments that we received to questions that you may have to ensure that we're targeting the right depth of material that's of interest to you. So I just wanted to start by kind of reviewing the history of the environmental analysis, the project analysis. And I want to clear up a couple of confusions or misconceptions that there may be out there that have come through in some of the public comment. The first thing is that the City of Arcata is the lead agency for the purposes of CEQA. So that's an important first distinction. Prior to approving the project, the City of Arcata has to make a formal CEQA determination. And in tonight's action, we're asking you to actually certify the final EIR for this project, which will allow you then to take action on the project. That action will be to approve a coastal development permit and approving this project design. Part of the project, a portion of the roundabout, small portion of the roundabout, and then the portions that are up Jacoby Creek Road are in the county. And portions of those areas that are in the county are also in the coastal zone. And so the county is going to take a separate action on a coastal development permit. And they'll use our environmental document as the lead agency to evaluate the environmental impacts there. Separate from that, completely separate environmental analysis from that, Caltrans is also conducting NEPA review, so the National Environmental Policy Act review, for the funding that they're providing towards the project. And so Caltrans is responsible for conducting the NEPA review, and the City of Arcata is responsible for doing the CEQA review. So that's a first major starting point that we need to understand. In May of 2019, staff brought the project before the City Council for approval with a mitigated negative declaration. Mitigated negative declaration essentially states that the project is likely to have significant environmental impacts without mitigation, and so we're incorporating mitigation to reduce those impacts to less than significant. At that time, in May 2019, a fair argument was raised, which is a term of art in CEQA, around the potential for impacts to historic resources. Essentially, what a fair argument is a disagreement among experts about the substantial evidence that's in the record as to the environmental impact that's being analyzed. Once a fair argument is made, the city is required to then do an environmental impact report. That more detailed analysis provided for an environmental impact report, more detailed process to value that allows for in the environmental impact report, can take into consideration these different bodies of evidence that have been presented. It evaluates that evidence and then determines the evidence to base its findings on. The findings that are found in CEQA guidelines 15090 and 15091 that are required for certification of an EIR. Those same findings are in your resolution 212-44 tonight for your review and approval. The EIR is not intended to resolve the differences among these dueling experts. What it's intended to do is to disclose the information that's been received, to identify the body of evidence that the jurisdiction is using to evaluate the environmental impact, and to identify the differences between those dueling experts and why the city has decided to use the body of evidence that it has chosen to use. So I'm going to dig into this in just a little bit of detail, but again, this is real superficial. We do have our historic resources experts on the call tonight to answer any questions, or if you'd like a presentation from them, they're more than happy to. But essentially, one of the main disagreements that was made around historic resources was whether or not we had fully captured all of the historic resources that could be impacted. So in the final EIR, when we circulate the draft EIR, we put forward all of the evidence that the city is using to make its environmental determination, and then it circulates that for a period of 45 days and receives information back in the form of letters from the public. Those are compiled in the final EIR, and the responses are drafted to address those. And so that's what we've done in this final EIR, and ultimately we have a updated final EIR. And the reason for that is that in December 12, 2021, when we were preparing to bring the final EIR for your certification and approval of the project, it was indicated in one of the letters that we received prior to that hearing that the project modifications that we made that Nature just described to include additional parking to address some of the community concern would basically fill in a ditch. The ditch was typed out as a wetland. And so we had identified and classified that, but we did not disclose it in the environmental document. And so as a result of that, on December 12th, 2021, when you were preparing to review and approve the project at that time, staff informed the council that we actually had to recirculate that portion of the environmental document. And so we went through a second circulation period on that portion of the document that needed to be updated to address those concerns. That circulation period ended on January 27th of this year, and we've prepared the final EIR updated with that recirculated information for your review tonight. So the updated final EIR includes responses to all of the comments that the city received during both the initial circulation and the recirculation, provides responses that address the substantive environmental concerns that were raised, and makes certain amendments that are necessary to the draft EIR to clarify or ensure that the information in the draft EIR is understandable and that it clearly articulates what the concerns were. Many of the questions that were raised in the comments that we received from the public were simple clarifications to the information that was in the draft EIR. And so you'll see those as an errata in the updated final EIR, addressing the changes that we felt were necessary to fully address those questions. What we do not have in this final EIR that we're reviewing tonight, however, are any concerns that have not otherwise been addressed either in the draft EIR, the recirculated partial draft EIR, or the final EIR. You have received several correspondences. We've provided a packet that we received correspondence prior to the preparation of the meeting, prior to the preparation of the staff report, rather. And then you've also received several blue folder items, notably a letter from Bayside Care's attorney, Chris Hamer, from February 7th, which staff has responded to in writing and provided that for you as a blue folder item as well. And essentially what our analysis in that response is that nothing new has been raised at this point that would cause us to need to recirculate the document or have any further delays in the review and analysis of the final EIR. And so, ultimately, the EIR found that all of the potential impacts are mitigated to a less than significant amount. And the analysis is more detailed than the MND, but came to the same conclusions of the MND, that there are no environmental impacts that can't be mitigated. The several issues that were raised during the circulation were addressed in the updated final EIR. And for those reasons, staff is recommending that you certify the updated final EIR, which incorporates the draft EIR and recirculated portions of the draft EIR, by adopting Resolution 212-44. That also adopts the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program, which details the responsibility of the city to implement these mitigations. And then to take action on the project, adopting the city council action. Just in closing, I'll say that the city did receive several comments. Many were in support of the project and the environmental conclusions of the project. There were many comments that raised certain concerns, and obviously those have been addressed in the final EIR. But that the recommendation that staff is making tonight is supported by the Planning Commission, which voted to recommend approval of the project, as well as the Historic Landmarks Committee, which also voted for the recommendation to the City Council to approve the project. And so with that, I'll close and ask that you approve the City Council action and address any questions to staff and/or our consultants. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Loya. So just so we're all on the same page as far as process goes, we're going to open a public hearing right now. So we're opening that hearing. We will ask questions, take public input, and then in order to close it and move forward, that'll be based on a motion for under the recommendations of items 3 and 4. And so those will both need to be read at the same time. Okay, so let's go ahead and ask questions to either Nature or David.
We are questions first, or public comment first?
No, we can do questions.
Cool. Could I just, because David, you were just talking about the wetlands and why we recirculated the environmental document. Could you just go into a little bit more specifics of what mitigations are, being taken to deal with that drainage around the roundabout and the wetlands that are off Jacoby Creek Road there? And then also maybe explain a little bit, because earlier you talked about how the county, or maybe Netra said this, how the county is getting a separate coastal development permit on, I guess, that stretch of Jacoby Creek Road that is county land. So could you just briefly explain what the mitigations are for the wetlands, and then also how the county and their coastal development plays into that?
Yeah, sure. Just in brief, all of the wetlands that were identified that are being permanently impacted by the project are being fully mitigated in like-kind newly created wetlands. And so it's a wetland mitigation ratio of about 1.2 to 1. So for every 1 square foot of wetland that we're filling, we're creating a 1.2 square feet of wetland within the project area. There are some temporary impacts to wetlands that will happen during construction, but all of those will be restored after construction, and so we're not making compensatory mitigation for those. And so the wetlands are fully mitigated. There were, I'll just say tangentially, there were some concerns about impacts to special status species, red-legged frogs in particular, due to the wetland impacts, and there are mitigation measures included in the mitigation monitoring reporting program as well that addresses those impacts. And then in terms of the county CDP, coastal development permit, we'll be applying for a coastal development permit with the county. They will process that separately. There are no coastal wetlands that are being impacted by the project. And so that's not an issue that needs to be addressed in terms of mitigation measures. But their process will follow ours, and they'll use our EIR as the basis for their environmental determination too.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. I have a separate topic question now, and this might be for you, David, or for Netra. And just could you kind of lay out what the next steps in the process towards design are, and how we are going to work to incorporate requests from kind of people that we have been talking to and working with, Jacoby Creek, Mistwood, also the letter that I know Netra went over a bit. You know, the logging trucks for Green Diamond. So I guess what outreach and participation will be in that process, and kind of what are the next steps from getting from 30% design to, you know, building it and having a full design?
I can speak for that portion of the next steps on the design. So as shown on the staff report and the environmental document, currently we are at the 30% design. So once the CEQA is complete and it's approved, we still need to wait for NEPA approval, which is, as David mentioned, Caltrans is the lead agency, so they have to complete that. So without that, we cannot complete the final design. So we are in communication with Caltrans team, and they are working towards that. And hopefully in a month time or a little bit more than that, they will be able to do that. So once that's complete, then we already have a consultants on board to move with the next step, which is final designs. And then final design could be divided into 50% design, then 90% design, and the 100% design. So what could happen is we can, when we move to 50% design, we can bring that to the council as a public meeting. Then that time, whatever the comments which we are able to do within the purview of the environmental document, we will incorporate those comments and improvements, and then we'll develop 50% design, and then we can show that to those member of public through our website or through our public meeting. And that will be the next step, where people will be able to see 50% design. Then once they have seen it and those elements are incorporated, then we can move to the next level called 90% design. Still at 90% design, if there's something that's not addressed and which is addressable within the purview of the environmental document, we can do that, and then we will move to the 100% design. So those are the steps that we will be taking moving forward.
And I just want to add really quick, Sarah, on your Green Diamond comment, I did contact Green Diamond, and I spoke to one of their vice presidents and assured them that that our staff was going to reach out to them and make sure we had all the information we needed.
Yeah, and I know staff spoke to probably the same gentleman from Green Diamond as well that sent the letter. And so just making sure, yeah, that we do incorporate those requests, because, and it affects the city directly too. We have timberlands out there as well. So, and then just to kind of expand on that, Netra, and in those next steps, I mean, is there any, what does the timeline, I guess, look like on those next steps, and how does that interact with the funding for this project? And is there any, speed that we need to take, or any concerns about funding, or are we, looking good with that if this environmental document gets approved?
I would say like looking good and speeding, yes, and speeding is important. As you know, this project has been on the books for 3 years. We got some extension, but those extension does not last forever. If we don't complete our final design or not able to deliver the project in time, that funding will go away, definitely. But the funding deadline for our STIP improvement, called the State Transportation Improvement Program funding that we have for construction, is we have to complete our design by, I would say, the latest January of 2023 to complete our design of January of 2023 to get the funding allocated by February of same year, 2023. We will give that paperwork to Caltrans, and they will give it to the CTC, and they'll be meeting in March when they will approve the funding. We will not have the money. We have time to spend the money, and we can ask for extension on those. We will have at least 2025 to finish the construction, but our current deadline is to save the funding, is to finish our design by January of 2023 to keep that $2.4 million for the project. So definitely we got to be aggressive on decision making and moving forward with the project that we have.
Great, thank you, Netra, and thank you, David. That's all the questions I have.
All right. Yeah, I'd love to receive the presentation from the Historic Resources folks. I appreciate you making that offer.
I believe, Andrea, you want to start that, or maybe Mel from JRP? There it is.
Mel is here and he can answer questions. Was there a specific question that you wanted him to speak to?
David just mentioned a presentation, so I didn't know if you had something prepared. But I do have some, I think, general questions.
Yeah, I don't think we were planning to provide a presentation, but we can definitely answer questions.
Yeah, I guess I was looking more for, we were offered a presentation, so no problem. I'll just move on with the rest of my questions. Thank you. All right. So, I feel like this is a very serious decision we're being asked to make tonight, as it involves spending millions of dollars of taxpayer money. And also, from what I've seen, it seems like it's pretty much a guarantee we're going to get sued over this project, potentially by multiple parties. So for these reasons, I felt like it was really important to go over every aspect of this project from start to finish. I didn't hear about it until Thursday. A community member let me know, and then I wasn't able to get any of the documents, the hard copies, until Friday evening. And between Friday and today, I probably spent over 30 hours trying to understand the over 1,000 pages of information for this project. I did request several hours of staff time to help me understand this project, being that it's so large and complex. And, a lot of people don't know that I also have a learning disability that makes it so I need a lot more time to read information than the average person. I also need complex information to be explained to me by someone in person or over the phone to be able to comprehend it. And then I was told by staff that per the direction from the council, I'd only be allowed 30 minutes of staff time. So I basically had to beg for more time. And then they said, okay, well, we'll give you an hour. So an hour, still wasn't enough time to get all my questions answered for over 1,000 pages of complex information. And, we haven't even gotten to the legal challenges we've been presented with. There have been some very serious accusations brought against a public official, public officer that suggests financial conflicts of interest with this project, and that all the work on this project is invalid due to the participation in the decision-making process. So yeah, and I guess, my first question is, there's just so much information here. Did everybody on the council get a chance to digest, the 1,000 pages of information in CEQA?
Yeah. Well, and we've been presented with the majority of this. Us all being new, we've had several opportunities to review it prior to this, and you've actually been on council much longer than us, and it's, it went through your council first. So I feel like we're personally, I'm very up to speed on this project.
Excellent. So there was also a table in the partially recirculated draft EIR, table 2-1, that cites various reports and studies, and I was told that that was kind of an important part that went into chapter 2, and I'm wondering if everybody got a chance to get to those materials, because I wasn't able to.
Again, I feel like I'm fully up to speed.
Okay. So no one was able to get to those? No problem.
That's not what I said.
Pull up my computer and see exactly specifically what on the document you're talking about, because I accessed it digitally because I didn't want to waste the paper. So
sure.
I didn't bring my laptop tonight.
Yeah, it's just, I'm just looking at the CEQA guidelines, and we just have a legal obligation to make sure we've considered all the information before making a final decision on this.
Yeah, I would just say, just go ahead and ask your questions, and then if we have questions or clarifications, then we'll do that.
Thank you. So yeah, I definitely wasn't given the time and the resources I needed to get through all this information. And I just received answers to some of my questions this afternoon, and this is the first time I've been able to look at them. So, due to my learning disability.
The CEQA document's been in circulation since, for months.
Sure, I'm talking about my questions right now. So this is the first chance I've gotten to look at some of the answers to my questions. So I'm just going to go through them and ask for some explanations as I go through. So could somebody please talk more about the visually sensitive features? I did get a response, but it's a little bit complicated, and I was hoping we could get that explained again, please.
So I think the question is around visual impacts of the project, and I don't know if perhaps one of the consultants would like to speak to what was analyzed in terms of visual impacts to the project.
Hi, Council. Yeah, my name is Mel Melvin. I'm with JRP Historical Consulting, and we're the firm that did the historical analysis for this project. Yeah, just kind of an overview of the visual impacts. I guess a few things to remember are that there'll be no direct impacts to any historic property because the entire project is within the right-of-way, the existing public right-of-way. So the only potential impacts will be visual. And of all the parcels along the project corridor, the only ones with the potential for a visual impact are those immediately adjacent to the roundabout. And JRP, myself and my colleagues at JRP determined that there would be no substantial visual impact to any of the historic properties that are adjacent to the roundabout. And those, there are three of them. Those three are the old Jacoby Creek School, the former Grange Hall, and the Mistwood Education Center. And our analysis of no substantial visual impact were based on a few different factors. One is that the current intersection there is not the historic intersection. It's not in the historic configuration. That intersection was reconfigured and redesigned in, I believe, 1947 to its current configuration, which is kind of a sweeping curve of Old Arcata Road. So by constructing a roundabout there, you're not destroying or the historic intersection. You're actually just modifying an already modern intersection. And the other main factor was there are a number of modern buildings that have been built in that area, as well as there's been a loss of a number of historic buildings in that area. So so the historic character of that intersection in terms of setting has already been compromised. So our analysis concluded that by putting in a roundabout, it would not, although it would be obviously a change in the setting, the change would not be substantial enough such that the historic properties would no longer be able to convey their significance. And I know that's kind of a lot of historian jargon, so I'm happy to clarify any of that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I do have some more questions, but I think in the name of time, just as I'm realizing that you know, all the information has been considered. You know, we received this letter from Bayside Cares on Friday the 11th, and it was blue foldered, which means it'll get included in the agenda, you know, I guess at a later date, but I don't believe the public is, this is a public document, and I don't believe anybody in the public has had a chance to see it. So I just wanted to, you know, just to give some context to some of the legal concerns. I just want to read a little bit of it. On behalf of Bayside Cares, we're writing to object to the City of Arcata's proposed certification of the final environmental impact report to issuance of a coastal development permit because all the contracts that led to its preparation, including the contract for charrette study, the contract for preparation of the initial study, the contract for design of the project, the contract for preparation of the mitigated negative declaration, the contract for preparation of the draft environmental impact impact report, the recirculated portion of the FEIR, and the FEIR and contract for construction of the project are void because a public official or officer had a financial interest in all of them and participated in making all the contracts. The public official is also a conflict of interest with respect to the project as well. And it goes on. So were we able to get a legal analysis of this? Because it seems like a really, some kind of heavy allegations made that could really impact the project.
Also, I believe this was brought to us as a consideration, I think through either a public comment or by staff at one of the last updates that we had about this as well, and about transportation safety, Josh Wolf's involvement in the project. And so maybe, is Nancy on the call? Could she kind of give her analysis of what, risks there are, and if this is actually a substantiated claim? I think it would be helpful to hear from our city attorney.
Sure, thank you, and good evening. I know this material did come in at the last minute, and it sounds a little scary, but I don't think there is a conflict of interest issue here. And that is because I don't believe there's a financial interest that impacts Mr. Wolf. So the issue arises from the fact that Mr. Wolf is a member of the city's Transportation Safety Committee, and the project was presented to the Transportation Safety Committee as early as 2016. In, I believe it was 2018, the city then contracted with GHD Consulting Engineers to do the environmental work, the actual CEQA work that you're evaluating this evening. And Mr. Wolf is an employee with GHD. Now, my understanding, and I did have time to talk a little bit with GHD General Counsel this afternoon, my understanding is that they did look at this issue at the time the RFP for the environmental work was under consideration, and then they've looked at it again more recently because of the allegations that were raised in this letter, the February 11th letter, sorry. And they had come to the same conclusion that there's no impact from this work on Mr. Wolf's salary. If the city hadn't awarded this contract to GHD, his salary would stay the same. He would be working on other projects. And that is the threshold question that is asked in the conflict of interest issue that was brought up in the February 11th letter. If you also look at the timing of Mr. Wolf's involvement, as I said, it went to the Transportation Safety Committee in 2016, possibly also in 2017. The contract then is awarded in 2018, and thereafter, Mr. Wolf has disqualified himself. And that is an acknowledged basis for mitigating and eliminating any potential conflict of interest of the type that was raised in the letter from Bayside Care's attorney. Do you have any other questions on this issue?
Yeah, and maybe you don't have the answers to this, Nancy. It might be city staff, but could somebody just go into a little more detail about Transportation Safety Committee's involvement in this project, and if they have actually given any, direct approve this project guidance, or that would show that maybe Mr. Wolf was pushing that or anything, or what the direct involvement was of the TSC.
I can speak for that. As I said, this project has been in the books for a while. In 2016, when we went through the design shed process, Josh Wolf was a TSC member at that time, but GSD was not working on the contract. TSC did not formally ever approve the project or disapprove the project. And it was presented at the TSC. However, the project was selected in 2017 at the council meeting when they approved the project. It was not TSC's role to approve the project one way or the another. If that answers your question.
Thank you.
Yeah, do we have any meeting minutes or anything to support that he recused himself, just so we can have that information? It's pretty detailed, the complaint. It says he gave a presentation to council, it kind of goes on. So I'm just wondering, do we have that supporting evidence? Because it doesn't sound like we're certain.
No, he never gave a presentation to the council. I could speak for that definitely. In our experience at TSC, they never did presentation. And Esther Chen, and I'll just maybe clarify from that letter, they have said GSC did the presentation in 2016. However, the presentation was done by Esther Chen, who was the consulting team at that time for the design shared process, and not GHD.
Okay. And then I know yesterday with my meeting with staff, he was present and gave me a lot of consultation on the project. Is that all good too?
Well, I'm not sure the consultation. I think there was question and answers on the design, and I was there with Josh on the project, so he answered some of the questions. So.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, and I'm ready for public comment.
Do we have any other questions or comments from council before we shift to public comment? Okay, well, we'll do that, and then there'll be time after that in case it brings up anything else that we'd like to ask. All right, so let's go ahead and begin. I'm guessing there's a few people online.
We have a few. Our first speaker is Lou. Go ahead, Lou. Those of you who've had your hands raised for a while.
Hi, my name is Lou Glitsky. I'm a resident of Arcata. I'm in my 80s, and consider bicycling to be a very important part of my daily health routine. But I'd like to tell you about an incident that happened to me on Old Arcata Road a few months ago that may be indicative of what the problems are now and why they need to be fixed. I was riding on my bike to the post office on Old Arcata Road when a mom and pop camper with wide mirrors passed on my left and nicked my ear with their wide mirror. Fortunately, I was okay, scared the daylights out of me, but another half inch to the right, and I probably wouldn't be here tonight talking to you, and scared the daylights out of me to the point where I haven't ridden my bike on Old Arcata Road since then, and I do all my errands in that area by car. That's not healthy, and it's not a good thing in a progressive city like Arcata. We need to do better than this. I think unless this improvement project is completed, things are likely to get a lot worse on Old Arcata Road with more traffic from the expansion of Cal Poly Humboldt and other projects, wind energy, whatever, that's in the offing. There's going to be more people, more bicycles, more cars, and unless things are going to be fixed, more accidents. I believe the improvement will get a lot more bicycles in the area on Old Arcata Road and hopefully less automobiles. So, the city has the money, the project is sound, and is supported by the vast majority of the population. And council, it's up to you guys now to do your job and get this thing approved. We need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lou.
Next speaker, ML Delaney. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
We can.
I would appreciate it if you would put me to the end of the list. I'd like to be the last speaker, if that's all right. Normally we line up and we could take positions, but we can't do this on Zoom very effectively, so I'm requesting that.
Zoom just lines you up as you raise your hand, so go ahead.
No, I would like to be the last speaker. Can I please be the last speaker?
Just put your hand down, and you can put it up later.
My hand is down now. I will put it up later.
Miriam, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for all of the amazing effort that has gone into researching this project. I live in the affected area on Jacoby Creek Road. I have 2 children at Jacoby Creek School, and we access this intersection in our car, on bikes, and on foot. There is amazing research out there showing that roundabouts reduce injuries and even lower carbon emissions. And so I think in part, I'm very supportive of roundabouts in general. And then specific to this area, because it is an area where I see great opportunity to lower speed and make the intersection more accessible. I think this process that you have gone through has been exhaustive. It's been comprehensive. It's been inclusive. Staff has adequately responded to all the questions and concerns, and almost to the point where this is like analysis paralysis. And I just am really impressed with Netra and David's work in contributing and answering all of the questions that have been brought up. And I think this most recent attempt to throw around things like conflicts of interest is just another way of being another obstruction in the way of a really positive project that I think will dramatically improve the safety and quality of life at that intersection. And I urge council to please move this project forward. There's significant financial resources at stake, and according to staff, the timeline is such that you need to move forward. So I think all of the concerns have been addressed and mitigated, and now it's time to move forward with voting to approve the process and approve the project and move forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Miriam.
All right, next speaker is Mary. Go ahead, Mary.
Thank you very much. My name is Mary O'Brien, and I live at 1785 Old Arcata Road, just 3 houses from the proposed roundabout. And as the first speaker described, sometimes being on Old Arcata Road is a very dangerous proposition. It's very dangerous for me to leave my driveway. It's dangerous for me to go to the post office, and it's dangerous for me to walk on Old Arcata Road for exercise or to take my granddaughter to Jacoby Creek School. I know there have been a lot of comments about quote unquote the community atmosphere here in Bayside. And while I certainly enjoy the benefits of Bayside and its character, I do think the safety of our residents should be paramount, and the ability for everyone to enjoy bike lanes and be safe while they're walking on Old Arcata Road is very, very important. In recent discussions among supporters, we felt like there would in the future be an opportunity to address some of the issues that have been presented by people who have spoken out against the project, including making the roundabout a nice entry into Arcata, and also providing attractive protection to areas that might need more protection from passing cars and trucks. Excuse me. I do believe that the calming effect of the roundabout is absolutely essential, and when I pull out of my driveway and I look to the right down Old Arcata Road towards Jacoby Creek, and if I go ahead and make that left turn, believe it or not, in that just those few seconds of pulling out of my driveway, I could have somebody right behind me, nearly on my bumper at times. And I just feel like the traffic calming effects of a roundabout would really improve safety on this portion of Old Arcata Road. And I think it's essential. And I would ask you to take the next step of approving this EIR so that this project can proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
All right, our next speaker is Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
My name is Eric Hall, and I support this project. Please make it happen. I yield my time.
Thank you, Eric.
Our next speaker is Sue. Go ahead, Sue.
Respectfully, I would ask that the Arcata City Council members deny this project. It remains incomprehensible that a project encompassing 2 jurisdictions with such significant impacts as this does not have a traffic study. Adding a roundabout without a detailed study is itself a dereliction of duty, potential act of potential liability. But to do so adjacent to a school and a post office with multiple entrances, exits, and driveways compounds the poor planning. Pedestrians who will have to cross at the pump house are denied visibility to the southeast, whilst drivers and cyclists traveling west will find their visibility obstructed by the same building. There is no safety for pedestrians at that crosswalk. Neither the certification of an EIR nor the approval of a project should be guided by appeals to numbers of supporters. Unfortunately, this project was mismanaged from the outset, and Humboldt County planners abandoned their responsibilities with respect to the roundabout, drainage, and wetland evaluation, protection of natural resources and historic properties at the Bayside intersection. This project will not address safety issues as long as drivers ignore the rules of the road and they drive distracted. The City of Arcata and Jacoby Creek School were suggested to make serious implementation of measures to mitigate the increased traffic as long ago as 2017, and absolutely nothing has happened. You need to invest instead in 21st century carbon neutral planning that incorporates best practices of slowing and reducing vehicular traffic through enforcement, public transportation, trees, natural resources, and aesthetic elements for traffic calming. And on the record today, I called CHP and APD due to 2 incidents on the road, one at Golf Course Road where a stop sign was ignored, and again on Jacoby Creek Road with excessive speeding. I'm sorry, but we need to have more law enforcement to really support pedestrians and cyclists and drivers in this community. Respectfully, I would respectfully ask you to reconsider this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
All right, next speaker, call in user 12. Go ahead and unmute. Looks like you're on. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi there. Yeah, Uri Driscoll here again. Been looking at this project kind of a little bit peripherally, but I'm seeing some common threads that I think are going to cause you quite a bit of problems. I think personally, you just be absolutely crazy to approve this roundabout design. Clearly, there's a lawsuit waiting in the wings. They've obtained legal counsel. They've articulated, brought to fair arguments that have not been addressed in full capacity. The previous caller mentioned no traffic study. Wow. That is one of the failings of the Ridge Trail project too, that there was no traffic study, still has not been a traffic study done on that. And I heard Mr. Loya say that wetlands were not coastal, but as I'm reading through this report and the letters, the wetland consultant concluded that there were coastal wetlands. So I'm not sure what the discrepancy there is, but there just sounds like there are just so many discrepancies and so much resistance. I think that approving the improved T intersection options would help alleviate the inevitable lawsuits that are going to happen. Let's just face it. And I think that you could create a design there that would help some deal with some of the safety issues that, you know, legitimately are there. But again, I would agree that enforcement of speed is really critical. But the first thing you guys got to do is a traffic study. I mean, oh, geez. Anyway, my recommendation would be to approve the T intersection improvements and reject the roundabout. I think it'll save everyone a ton of headaches. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Uri.
Next speaker, call-in user 11. Go ahead. You're on.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. A little bit of historical perspective here. This is my wife's family backyard. I think my grandchildren are sixth generation Humboldt County. Earl Bean is the one who built the covered bridge at the edge, and I think the Grange, a lot of that was constructed and quite a bit run by the Dewey Dolph Sr. family there. So, we have quite a bit of time in this. We have timber property, timber holdings. I did call Jason L. Carlson with the Vice President and General Manager, and he indicated you were working toward a solution. We also have timber property, and I kind of trust him. I think it was something, I thought somebody said 112, but 105 feet long is what this letter says end to end when fully loaded. And you haven't worked that through yet. I really don't think you're in a position to move forward with this project until you get a little bit more buy-in from everybody involved and something that more people are happy with. I think a fair argument can be made that there's going to be major visual impacts on this. And it's a little hard for some people to understand. Maybe you're used to these roundabouts, but to us, it's kind of like taking Paradise and paving it and turning it into a parking lot equivalent. 1947, I guess this particular thing, that does go back away, and that is close to a historic thing. Maybe even restore it to something prior to that. But we just don't want to be cityized. I mean, we're in Humboldt County. Your double jurisdiction here is very conflicted. I know people will support it. Maybe everybody can get a buy-in on a different project or something, but you don't have that. And I think that's always important. You don't want people driving through there for the rest of their life and feel like they're just being disrespected by not being listened to. I appreciate you listening. That's my suggestion. I'm not threatening litigation, but of course that always is an option. And with your time concerns, you're way better off working out the problems and making everybody happy in advance rather than 5 or 6 years from now finding out it's exiting the judicial system. The conflict of interest was very interesting. It was actually perceived they had a conflict, and I'm surprised this conversation you had here was done in public rather than closed session. I would not normally have seen that happen. Just the discussion was something I was very surprised about because that's a threat of potential litigation, and that normally is not discussed in the public forum. Highly recommend you don't do that in the future. So anyway, I really rather see this worked out amongst everybody and come to a consensus, make sure that it does meet the qualifications for Green Diamond, and the rest of us can have a buy-in on a project that works for everybody. To point out something, I think the Bayside cutoff is going to be closed relatively soon, and quite a bit of your traffic, I know I use that thing, accessing that, and quite a bit of your traffic may be curtailed. I think there's better plans that can be come up with to satisfy everybody's need. Thank you for my 3 minutes to speak on this topic.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, our next speaker is Gordon. Go ahead, Gordon.
Yes, I've lived in, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Oh, good. I've lived in Bayside for 30 years. I walk or cycle Old Arcata Road, weather permitting, every single day. And it's a mess. It's very bad, and it's getting worse, and it's dangerous, and we have had some near catastrophes. And I want you to remember, council members, your responsibility to public safety. You've got children walking in traffic down there at Jacoby Creek School, and you've got to protect them, and they don't have sidewalks. So to me, the project is a piece of art. It's beautiful. It's the most well thought out and discussed project imaginable. This has gone on for many years. And it's pretty clear that you're not going to be able to satisfy every single person in the town. I'm sorry about that, but it doesn't seem possible. You've got to do something about Old Arcata Road. And I'm not going to argue the fine points at this point. That's really been, we've had almost 10 years of discussion on this thing, and you're not going to get 100% buy-in on any concept. So it looks great to me, and I'd like to see it built. I also want to thank Josh Wolf and his team, Netra Khatri, for an exceptionally attractive design. I really like the models that I've seen, and I'm 100% in favor of this project, and the sooner you can build it, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon.
Next speaker is Alice. Go ahead, Alice.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate everybody's input on this. I work at Mistwood Educational Center, which is the school on the corner, right where the roundabout is proposed, and we've been there for over 30 years. I was just looking at the additional parking lot design that Netra showed earlier, which shows about, I think he said 80 parking spaces in the area. With the parking spots that are put in currently, this plan will make the building completely inaccessible to the fire department. So if there is a fire, it could potentially spread to one of the other historical buildings or the neighborhood. Another main concern about the proposal right now is that this plan takes away one of our 2 driveways, which the driveway that is taken out is the most used by our parents and staff. And we are really concerned that this will cause a major traffic backup in the parking lot, which will cause a severe backup out to Jacoby Creek Road. And this could cause many potential injuries, not only for our children and our parents that are driving in here and trying to do like an Austin Powers in the hallway in the golf cart, try and get out. But I think it could cause a severe traffic, I guess, impediment for the roundabout. So as a teacher and a co-director, safety is my #1 concern. And the way that the roundabout is designed currently just makes me feel really unsafe. So I was wondering maybe if Netra could address the parking spots with the fire department, because that is a huge red flag to me.
I just want to make sure that you're done with your comment, Alice.
I am. Thank you so much. I know
all right.
it was kind of abrupt. I'm just,
it's okay.
I'm thinking on the fly here and just saw this, and it really is a major concern.
No problem. And I know it can be difficult sometimes to speak in these meetings, so thank you, and we appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, our next speaker is Emily. Go ahead, Emily.
Good evening, council members. My name is Emily, and I'm a resident of Arcata. I'm also a graduate of HSU, now Cal Poly Humboldt, and I've been fortunate to live in Arcata for 18 years. My husband and I own a home just off of Old Arcata, and we use the area in this project scope regularly, both as motorists and pedestrians. We walk our dog on a daily basis along the side of Old Arcata Road that does not have a sidewalk. We also have good friends that live near the terminus of the proposed project. We frequently try to limit the use of our cars and choose to walk and bike to visit each other. My friends have small children that attend Jacoby Creek School, and while we enjoy the portion of Old Arcata that has a safe sidewalk, following that section, we're forced to continue our journey on the side of the road without the use of a sidewalk, dealing with fast traffic and distracted motorists. To say it feels unsafe is an understatement. I also work in Eureka, so use the same section of road on my daily commute. As a motorist, I also fully support the proposed project, including the increased traffic safety measures in the form of the roundabout, signage, and lighting at Jacoby Creek Road. I also want to add that on a regular basis, I observe that visitors from out of the area, as well as from surrounding communities, drive to this area of Old Arcata Road to park their cars and bike and walk. The proposed sidewalk and safety improvements would cater both to these visitors to our area, as well as to the residents and community members. The addition of traffic safety measures, both motorized and non-motorized, including safe sidewalks, designated bike lanes, would enable families and those with pets to enjoy our beautiful community safely. I know you've put in ample work over the last 5 years and have continued to address citizen comments to consider all the project impacts and I thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide feedback today. I strongly and respectfully encourage Council to continue to move this project forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your public input.
Next speaker is Sarah. Go ahead, Sarah. Screen name Sarah Dronkers. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sorry about that. The computer went to sleep. My name is Mike Dronkers. I am on Sarah's computer, but we both share our excitement for this project. We live here in Bayside. We live very much in the impacted area that would benefit from this project if it is ever moved forward. Our kids use Old Arcata Road all the time. They walk to school, they walk to the bus stop. And I would also just like to say thank you to the city staff for their hard work on this. It looks exhaustive and it's really impressive stuff. And so to everybody who has been chugging away, making this project happen, just thank you so much. It is really, really appreciated. And it's also great to hear so many of our actual neighbors who live in this affected area on the call to express their support for it as well. I think we're all pretty excited about having a safer Old Arcata Road. So yeah, we support the project with the roundabout. We're really excited about it. And we hope that you can get started on it as soon as possible so that it is less dangerous sooner. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is screen name Carla. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Carla Paliaga, and I am 100% I'm 100% I just love this project. I've been involved for over 10 years. I really hope it happens. Old Arcata Road needs improvements. The intersection at Jacoby Creek, the only option that really addresses all of the safety concerns is with the roundabout because that slows traffic. And I hope we can get this taken care of sooner rather than later. So thank you. I want to say, also reiterate what Mike said. Thank you to all of the staff and everyone that's been working on this project. It has been exhaustive and I am exhausted, as I'm sure many of you are. And I really hope that we can move forward with this and make it happen sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jim. Go ahead, Jim.
Great, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Great. So my name is Jim Zolik. I live at 1766 Old Arcata Road in Bayside with my wife and my dog. We're about 3 doors down from the Bayside Post Office on Old Arcata Road. And so the proposed roundabout will be really just a stone's throw from our house. We walk and bike in our neighborhood pretty much daily. And we enthusiastically support the proposed project and especially the roundabout. And we are one of many families in this neighborhood, and you're hearing from many of them tonight, but certainly not all of them, who fully support this project. The speed of traffic through our neighborhood is really unsafe for bicyclists and pedestrians. My wife worries sometimes that cars are going to come around that sweeping curve that was redesigned, as we heard, in 1947. That's when we lost the rural character, I would say, and the roundabout will actually restore some of that. But we worry about a car coming around that bend and running into our house. The proposed roundabout is really the only effective solution to slow traffic. While the other improvements, the sidewalk, the bike lanes, et cetera, are also important, the roundabout's really essential. As folks have said, the city's done, I think, a great job of engaging the community on this project over a multi-year period. It has been exhaustive. They've heard and responded to community input. And we and my neighbors look forward to working with the city to bring the project from its current 30% design to the 100% design. I think that's one thing that some folks maybe don't realize. There's still a ways to go with the details. We know that there are some folks, and we've heard from some of them tonight, and I know some of the folks, my neighbors here, who are opposed to the project or opposed to the roundabout. And they've been quite vocal, but they're really a small minority. I don't really understand why they're so opposed, but I do understand some of their concerns. And we don't wish them any ill will. We'd really like to work with them and the city to try to create the best possible project that includes the proposed roundabout. And hopefully there's ways to mitigate some of their concerns when it goes from 30% to 100%. So I welcome those folks to engage with us and make this a great project. That's really all I have to say. Thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. Please approve this important project. It's needed for the betterment of our community and our city. Please do so that we don't lose the funding. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you for that, Jim.
All right, our next speaker, call-in user 13. Go ahead, call-in user.
Hi, my name is Steve McDonald. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. First of all, I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight and would like to thank all of you for all you have done for those that have reviewed the documents in a timely manner and addressed concerns that have been brought forward. Me, as well as my family, live out Jacoby Creek Road. I have 2 kids that are at Jacoby Creek School, and we ride our bikes and we walk on a regular basis, primarily riding the bikes and riding through the Jacoby Creek Road and the Old Arcata Road intersection there is really dangerous, both on the way to school and the way home from school. Trying to take a right-hand turn onto Jacoby Creek Road with the oncoming traffic there not slowing down is considerably dangerous for us. And then trying to take a left-hand turn back onto Jacoby Creek Road at the end of the day, there's just no easy way to get across that road right now. We also have gone through the Sunnybury Roundabout on our way to other locations when we're riding our bike. Going through a roundabout, you can see the traffic coming. It's easy to enter. The traffic is going so much slower. It is a world of difference. So I am in full support of having the roundabout and having the improvements on Old Arcata Road. I give my full support and hope you move forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Our next speaker is Will. Go ahead, Will.
Hello, can you all hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name is Will. I'm a resident along the proposed project area of Old Arcata Road. As many of my neighbors have explained so far, this is a vital public safety project. I have 3 young children. We walk along this road regularly every day. In fact, they all go to Jacoby Creek. And it's a harrowing experience to take them down alongside zooming trucks. I think our first commenter, Lou, talked about how he was clipped by a truck moving by him. This is not surprising to me at all. This may have one day been a historic site. It was one day a very rural area. Now it's a residential area. There are churches, there are meeting areas, there's a cafe, there's a school. The roadway is lined with people living there, and very importantly, including children who are walking along it regularly on the asphalt, not on a sidewalk, right next to cars moving by, just after coming off of a 45 mile an hour stretch. The roundabout is the only way to really slow that down, in my opinion. I think that's well proven by the great work of your staff. City Council, this has been going on for a very long time. You've invested a lot of hours of your staff and invested a lot of trust into your experts. And I would say at this point now it's time to take the advice of your experts along with the support of your citizens and approve this project. It's been before you for a very long time. We employ the citizens of Eureka choose to employ experts such as Natra Khatri, David Loya, and their staff to follow your direction, look into these kind of improvements, and provide expert advice as to how to get this done. We're in the middle of this process now. As others have stated, there's more to be done. But right now we're at a critical juncture, and we are relying on you to vote to approve this and move this forward. Thank you so much for all of the work that has gone into this project so far. I think now's the time to move forward. And thank you for hearing us all. Have a good night. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Will.
All right, next speaker, call-in user, ending in 57. Go ahead.
This is Michael Winkler. I've been a resident of Arcata for the last 25 years. Earlier incarnations of this project came before us a couple of times when I was on the Planning Commission, and at that time it felt like it was vitally needed for safety of pedestrians, for safety of bicyclists, especially the children in the area. And I feel like the draft, the EIR has been very thorough in addressing community concerns, and that I very much urge you to approve the EIR and ultimately to approve the project. And I think that it also may take some courage to face the possible lawsuits, but I think that the city is on very firm ground and that it should contest any lawsuits that are brought against the city.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, our next speaker is Gwellen. Go ahead, Gwellen.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
My name is Gwellen Paliaga. I live in the project area. My wife Carla spoke earlier, so I'll be quick. I'm in strong support of the project. Many of the previous speakers in support of it have made most of the points that I would make, so I won't repeat them. But I will say that I've lived in this project area for approximately 39 years. My parents live just south of the project area. I've traveled through the roundabout. I live north of the project area, and I'm very excited about the benefits and encourage the council to approve the EIR. Thank you.
Thank you for that.
All right, our next speaker is Chelsea. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I am really excited about this project. I am a resident who lives on Old Arcata Road, right near the end of it. I'm a jogger. I'm an aunt of some very cute kiddos who walk Jacoby Creek, but I'm also a public health professional. And as a public health professional, I'm really excited for the environmental health impacts of this. Built environment is so important, and things like walkability have a huge impact on communities' diabetes, obesity rates, and things like asthma and just all sorts of health impacts. So I'm really excited about the health impacts of this for our community in a positive way. And mostly I'm excited about the roundabout, because the roundabout will greatly improve Jacoby Creek's walkability score and allow it to be a better built environment for our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chelsea.
All right, our next speaker, Miriam. We've had your screen name up before, but do you have somebody else at the house there?
No, sorry, I'll lower my hand.
Okay. All right, our next speaker, Mark Delaney, you've come back up. You're not quite the last one, but people might still continue to raise their hands, but you popped up next on Zoom. Go ahead.
Sure, that's fine. I appreciate hearing from our community, except it's not exactly our community. I live in Bayside. I wish that Netcher would pull up for you the parking slide and point out to you where the border of the city of Arcata is. The APE, the affected area for the project consideration, went up to the border of Arcata and Bayside. The project is in Bayside. It's 100% in Bayside. It's 100% in the coastal zone. The city of Arcata has approved this project and tried to get this project approved for 10 years. In 2017, Omni Engineering proposed doing a roundabout. These are two projects that are crammed together, segmented, in order to get them passed. And everybody's in favor of the pedestrian and Arcata Road improvement. Everybody. We want the safety. But nobody in Bayside wants the roundabout. It's not your town. You don't have the jurisdiction here. You can't build the project here in Bayside. I don't know what you're doing. You guys are crazy. Caltrans just started the 106 process which is Secretary of Interior 106 process, NEPA, National Historic Preservation Act. I don't know what you guys are doing, but $1 federal money contaminates the whole project. So you have contaminated the entirety of the Old Arcata Road pedestrian improvement project and the Caltrans highway improvement project to put a roundabout in the hamlet of Bayside. Please read the 2017 SHN report. Look at the DMZ historic report there. It's very good. Look at their recommendations. When the staff didn't like their recommendations, they hired JPR to write a different historic report. But the Secretary of Interior's guidelines and the Secretary of Interior's standards apply. And so does the National Historic Preservation Act, and so does environmental justice. A neighboring jurisdiction cannot just come into a community and build a project without consulting LAFCO, without consulting the general plan. You have to be, the California Constitution requires that you be in conformance with the general plan. You know, there's 3 general plans. There's Jacoby Creek, there's Humboldt County, and there's Arcata. It's general plan. If they all say, we will consult together, you have never consulted. The only people that ever consulted were done by hired consult that was also proposed the project, and now they're doing environmental review. Land use code says you can't do that. That's making money for yourself. You guys are in such trouble. Oh, but if you're holding Arcata hostage, all you need to do is stop trying to do the roundabout and approve the Arcata portion of the project. Everyone's in favor of it. You're not going to get any resistance. You build a roundabout in Bayside and call it the Arcata Gateway, it's going to be a problem.
Mark, that's your 3 minutes. Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Evan. Go ahead, Evan.
Hello, my name is Evan Hatfield. My family and I live in the hamlet of Bayside. And to stress, we are residents of Bayside. And like many of our peers we've heard from recently, we absolutely support the roundabout in Bayside. All of the points are familiar ones. We have a family, children at Jacoby Creek, we bike, we walk the dog, all of the things. And for reasons of safety and just the idea of moving beyond this idea of what once was, we absolutely support this project and moving into what could be better. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Evan.
All right, our next speaker is Daniel. Go ahead, Daniel.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, as a parent of a student at Jacoby Creek, I am in support of the project. I think that the roundabout is a good idea. It will calm traffic coming around the corner. I'm excited about the idea of more parking next to Jacoby Creek and the additional parking that you have shown on the most recent slide near Mistwood. I ask you to approve this project, and I thank you for listening to my talk.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Jude. Go ahead, Jude.
Okay, I'm here. Thank you very much. So I think it was Miriam who brought up the term analysis paralysis. That could be the subtitle for this entire project. And I am begging you to end the analysis paralysis and put us out of our misery. I've been supporting this project for 20 years when you started it back in 2000 or 2002. I can't wait for it to happen. It's a beautiful project. And I want to thank the City Council, this City Council, and also the various iterations of it in the last 5 years. You've been very receptive to public input. You've met with people. You've listened to us a million times. And I want to thank Netra Kutry and David Loya specifically for being equanimous and open-eared and also for accommodating virtually every single concern that has been brought up by the public. You have found ways to meet people's concerns and ameliorate them. Also, I live in the project area. I live very close to Jacoby Creek School in Bayside, but it is actually Arcata, annexed Arcata. And I have observed a lot more cyclists along this stretch of road in the last few years. I am not a cyclist, but I am a driver who is trying to avoid cyclists. And it's white knuckles on the steering wheel around here when there are cyclists riding in this crummy, crumbly, pitted, gravelly, narrow bike lanes that barely exist. So I'm thrilled at the prospect of cyclist safety, because it'll bring my heart rate down for one thing, but of course also for their safety. And there has been a traffic study. I'm not sure why people are saying there hasn't been. Caltrans did one years ago, and they gave the Jacoby Creek intersection a grade of F, as on an A to F scale, during the busy times of day. They said within the next 10 or 15 years, it will be a grade of F. It will be so unsafe an intersection. So the roundabout is essential. It will be beautiful. It will calm the traffic. So thanks to everybody, and thanks a lot to all the other people who have called in tonight and all the other nights in support of this project. There are way more than twice as many people supporting this project. Please, City Council, please vote to move ahead on this. We have less than 12 months to get it done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jude.
All right, our next speaker is Maggie. Go ahead, Maggie.
Hi, thank you. Maggie Gaynor. I live about a block from the proposed roundabout. I'll just reiterate what I've written many times and said before. The design of the project from Arcata up to the county side where the roundabout is, I'm very excited about. I've bicycled many times. I used to go back and forth between Bayside and into Arcata to go to work on my bike every day. It's frightening. It still is. And so I'm convinced that's really going to improve pedestrian and bicycle safety. I feel really confident. Right now, the design as it is will not slow the traffic between the proposed roundabout and Indianola. We used to count pet deaths. We've done walkability. Ali Lee did a really very good walkability study with lots of Bayside input a few years ago. And so that's my perspective. I do have a question. A number of the concerns, point for point, Natra raised earlier, one that he left out that I still have a concern about, and I would think that you would be concerned about it too, is the very close proximity of the proposed roundabout to the building of Misswood School. And I've never really been able, it's been a kind of a moving target, how many feet from the roundabout to the building. It is shockingly close. And so in this shifting, changing, possibly we can address different issues in the design. To me, that is one of the most important. We have the literally, we will be the ones to lose the most land from this very permanent roundabout. Bayside Corners is a 501c3 nonprofit that works on community improvement issues, services for youth and seniors, historic preservation, natural resource conservation. And we own that building and the land that it's on, small parcel. And so we would like to have a lot more input from staff and facts about how many feet there are between the roundabout and the building. So I would say it's not ready yet. That roundabout, I'm not convinced. and I'm pretty convinced it's not going to slow the speed between the roundabout on the way south along Old Arcata Road where I live. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maggie.
All right, our next speaker is Rebecca and/or Michael.
Hi, my name is Michael Griffin. I live at the southern end of the project zone. Right outside my house is the 45-mile-per-hour sign that drivers see as they're heading south on Old Arcata Road. And in fact, what that means is when people turn the corner, they start driving 45 before they've left the 25-mile-per-hour zone. And I really think this project will alleviate that, because I just don't think it'll be possible for drivers to reach those speeds coming in or leaving. And my wife and I and my newborn child, we walk every day. And it's one thing that we're very cautious, slightly scared, but we need to walk. We like to walk. It's a beautiful area, and we are very excited to see this project come to fruition. And I feel like we will benefit the most just because we won't have to deal with cars driving 45 miles per hour or more, even though we live in a 25-mile-per-hour zone. It's, from what I can tell, it's the most disrespected section of 25-mile-per-hour street in the whole city. Because once you make that turn, it's a straightaway, and so many people use that as a drag strip. And so that's my main concern, and that's just what we see from where we live. And I just want to thank everyone who's been a part of this project for so long. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, our next speaker is a call-in user. Call-in user, go ahead.
Good evening again, City Council. This is Oz of Arcata. I currently reside at Plaza Point. 25 years ago, I lived in Sunnybray. My dog and I would take a walk leaving Sunnybray to go to Three Corners Market. We walked the road every day, and 25 years ago, the traffic and the pedestrian problem was severe, extreme, and dangerous. One afternoon, I was walking about recess time in front of Jacoby Creek School, and I witnessed a vehicle, a light commercial vehicle, about 60 miles an hour at recess time. He temporarily lost control on the shoulder of the road, and if he didn't retain control, he would have left the roadway and gone directly through the front doors of the Jacoby Creek School with death in mayhem of certainty. Now, that's not if it happens, that's when it happens. In 25 years, the traffic has increased and it's dangerous beyond belief. I support this project if we have one design element that is considered: school safety. Is there a possibility that a retaining wall can be built so that that never happens again? The possibility of a vehicle driving into the school. If you can approve this project and think of the children first and get this through, I'm for it. If you have to go back and reconsider and redesign with school safety in mind, do it. But we need this to happen in a complete and comprehensive way. School safety, everything else about the plan. I commend the city engineer and staff and all the work they've done. It's a beautiful project overall. But school safety is my concern. Think of the children. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Oz.
All right, our next speaker is Sherry or Ed. Sherry and/or Ed, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Just Sherry tonight. And I live in Bayside on Old Arcata Road and drive Old Arcata Road several days a week. I hope that the city can encourage the county to reduce the 45 mile-per-hour zone to 35 miles per hour as soon as possible. Also, I hope that if the roundabout is built as part of this project, that funds can be provided to Mistwood School to mitigate the effects on their playground and parking lot. I am otherwise very supportive of the project and look forward to feeling safe enough to ride my bike to Arcata instead of driving. Thank you for all your hard work on this project. Thanks.
Thank you, Sherry.
Okay, Miriam, you've popped up again. Do you have somebody else that would like to speak? Go ahead.
We do.
Okay.
There's somebody else at our house who'd like to speak.
Perfect.
Hi, I am Zoe Billinger. I am 11 years old and I am a student at Jacoby Creek. I often walk home from school and I do not always feel safe walking in that area or crossing the street there. I support the roundabout being put in there. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to speak to us.
Bedtime.
All right, our next speaker is Lee. Go ahead, Lee.
Oh, hi. I'm Lee Dedini in Bayside. And before February 4th, I sent in the email to be included in the council staff report that you would have. And overall, I'm going to get to that. If one makes a comparison to Jacoby Creek School, if you look at the kindergarten play fence area, it's just about 10 feet to the walking path at the pedestrian road crossing. We are a small community and we need to live together with this project. So please approve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any, oh, one more. Go ahead, Clara.
Hello, my name is Clara Sander McDonald, and I live in the affected area. I live in Bayside, and I support this project, and I support the roundabout, and I urge you to approve the EIR and move this project forward. Thank you so much for all your hard work and listening to all these comments. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Clara.
All right, we have maybe another person at your house, Alice?
It is another person.
Okay,
Thanks
go ahead.
so much.
Hello, my name's Grayson. I'm from Mistwood, and I just wanted to say that it doesn't seem like we really need the roundabout there, and me and my classmates don't really feel safe with the roundabout being that close to our school.
And he's done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grayson, for taking the time to speak with us tonight.
All right, I see no other public comment on this item.
Okay, so after that, are there any clarifying questions or concerns for staff?
I don't have a question for staff. I do want to make a comment and just first of all thank everybody who took the time this evening to stay with us up till it's past bedtime, we've heard. So to give your public comment and give your feedback on this project. Really want to thank city staff for really, especially with some new members of the council working to get us up to speed, especially Netra and David, who I think both had the opportunity to meet out at the project site and talk about it. And I just want to say, I don't know, I feel like Councilmember Watson was insinuating that we have not done our due diligence in understanding and digesting this project. And, this is probably the first project that I heard and was updated on as a council member all the way back in December of 2020. I think it was literally my first council meeting. I have met with Bayside Cares and members of the community multiple times. I have walked the project area countless times. I have one of my best friends lives directly across from Jacoby Creek School. I go over to Jacoby Creek and play basketball and and walk my dog and walk that project area all the time. This project was also the original EIR before it had to be edited, was brought before the council to be seen on December 1st of 2021, and that was when Councilmember Watson was on his brief hiatus from the council, so maybe he did not have the time to read it all at that point, like we all had the time to, and to prepare for that meeting, because it was pretty last minute that we found out it was not going to be discussed at the meeting that night because the EIR needed to be updated. And so, between then and now, I feel like we've really had adequate time to digest and meet even more with community members and discuss this project. I also, to, I guess, make it personal, but, I grew up on this road. I went to Jacoby Creek School, kindergarten through 8th grade. I went to preschool at Jules Preschool on Old Arcata Road, around, 1700 Old Arcata Road, around there. I used to walk from Jacoby Creek School to there, to friends' houses on Old Arcata Road, and it was dangerous then, and that was 20 years ago at this point. So, we see the need in this community, and so thank you for the community for coming out and, supporting this project. And, we take it seriously. I know that this is a big deal, and, also the possibility of getting letters from people's lawyers and thinking we might get sued. But if we think we're going to get sued over everything, we'll never get anything done. And, the safety of this project is absolutely necessary. So I want to make a motion. And I move that we close the public hearing and adopt resolution number 212-44, certifying the Old Arcata Road Pedestrian and Bikeway Improvement Project Final Environmental Impact Report, EIR SCH number 202-101-0176, and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, and approve the action of the City Council regarding the Old Arcata Road Pedestrian and Bikeway Improvements Project and findings for approval and conditions of approval based on the final EIR design plan set.
I will second that.
So I feel like the most convincing argument I've heard tonight is pretty much in this letter from Bayside Cares. It seems pretty concerning to me, and we do have a legal duty to consider all the information before voting on this. There's information I haven't been provided with. It's not clear to me. The council has considered all the information, and I need to see a formal legal analysis, the February 11th letter. Frankly, it also seems like we could save the taxpayers millions of dollars by simply adding speed humps, electronic speed signs, and more traffic enforcement. So, for me, I need more time to read the EIR, and I also need a formal legal analysis before I can vote on it tonight. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to comment before we go to a vote? Okay, I'll just, I always speak last, and so oftentimes my colleagues are very eloquent and take all my words, but I do want to speak up on this. Ditto 100% to what Councilmember Schaefer said. I appreciate that. From my perspective, when we were elected in 2020, this was one of the first things we talked about. I sensed the frustration from those neighbors at that time. That was one of the first things that really came through to me. Here we are 14 months later, and the project, it needs to go through and it needs to happen, in my opinion. I know that there are still some concerns, especially regarding the roundabout and the proximity to Mistwood School, and I just want to reiterate that I feel like staff does a really great job of trying to be inclusive and absolutely include as many amenities that they can to bring about, to get the public on board for as many people as possible. So I have every confidence that we and staff will continue to work with the public with their concerns and do our best to alleviate them. I mean, the project is only at 30% design. We have a lot of things that we could consider. And regarding litigation, if you're paying attention to public meetings, you'll see that any type of project that goes through, pretty much the go-to these days is litigation. And so I'm not going to be threatened by litigation to slow something down when this is the new go-to, just slow something down or stop it. So since, having said that, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm abstaining because I don't have enough information. Thank you.
Okay, so it's 4 with 1 abstention by Councilmember Watson, so the motion passes. Okay, so we don't have any new business, so we will move on to another chance for oral communication. So this is, again, a time for people to address the council on matters that are not on the agenda. Please raise your hand if you are on Zoom webinar, or press *9 if you are on a phone line and you would like to make a public comment. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. When it is your time for public comment, you will be unmuted and invited to speak. So do we have any people wishing to speak?
I don't see any additional public comment tonight. Oh, we have one more. Call in user 5. Go ahead.
Good evening again, City Council. This is Oz of Arcata at Plaza Point. I'd like to discuss the conceptualization of the Gateway project. It contains 138 acres, as I understand it, from Stewart Park to Samoa Avenue. It has been for decades a rust bucket, industrial waste belt, and is long needed improvements in whatever we can do. But before anything is done, there's two primary considerations for that parcel. The first is assessing what the brownfield contamination and the railroad right-of-way contaminated area is, and mitigate and eliminate that as part of this project. When I take my kids down there, or when I go down and meet folks camping out along there, that I tell them not to eat the berries along the tracks, because them is poison berry. The other element to that is that I think of what it was originally. When I walk down from Stewart Park, I see in the cityscape the Victorian home. That's all that's left of the original old growth forest that was there once. And on that 138-acre parcel, if we don't design with nature in mind, then we're going the wrong way. There needs to be part of the project designed with Mother Nature in mind. My suggestion is that, looking at the topography from the downhill slope, we need a green zone, a green belt that runs with the city planning that we've done with our city green belt. And the recommendation is, because I know the land so well, 38 acres to reforestation as a green belt. We're doing really good with electrical power generation to make our city sustainable. All you have to do is recently visit the Sorrel project and Plaza Point, the crown jewel of our downtown housing stocks until Sorrel Place was built. We're doing well on net energy zero, but carbon sequestration needs to be a design element. Every project we do in the future, population density and induced demand for transportation infrastructure and housing are essential, but we do need to consider what we're taking away from our natural history there. The birds, the bees, the insects, and the small critters that live there now need to have natural habitat.
Hey, Oz, thank you so much for your public comment, but that's actually your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I see no other public comment for this evening.
Okay, do we have any staff updates or council member updates?
Just want to mention that the Chamber Awards dinner is this Friday. Looking forward to honoring our local businesses that have worked so hard this year. So you can Zoom in, and hope to see some people, Zoomed faces. And I would also like to say, Vice Mayor Goldstein, it has been an honor to sit up on the dais with you, and you'll be missed.
I second that. No.
Thank you. That's very nice.
No, it has been. Thank you for your service. Sorry, it has to be limited, but we wish you well.
I really appreciate it, and thank you to everyone who's supported me. And I do have to say, really thank you. I've gotten a huge outpouring of support and love from the community, from constituents that I've never talked to before, or maybe we've emailed and I forgot, and I apologize. But seriously, thank you so much. The support and love in this community is just astounding, and I appreciate you all so much. And thank you for allowing me to serve.
Yeah, I also really appreciate everything you've done for the city, and I wish you the best.
Thank you.
Hey, so next Tuesday, March 1st at 5:30, we will be doing our goal setting. So it's a study session, and of course, as always, the public is welcome and encouraged to attend. Will we be doing that one? That'll be our first in person?
Next Tuesday.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Is it? Yeah, sorry. Sorry. It's 2 weeks from now, and that will be our first back to in-person meetings. We did get to have one since some of us have been here, so now hopefully we'll get to go beyond one. So yes, please join us in person for that, March 1st at 5:30. Thank you. And with that, meeting is adjourned.